it's me that's talking about it.
Brilliant.
Welcome to
My Guy Reviews, the podcast.
Hello and welcome to My Guy Reviews. I'm My Guy Monkey. Where we talk about I think we need to start again actually.
Just start from here, just continue, soldier through.
No, I was trying to hear you. I'm not sure if I've got the volumes right. Okay, so we'll carry on.
Just soldier through. You did such a good job.
You're really, really quiet. That's weird. Hold on. Okay, it was my my sound, my audio, my headset. Yeah. Okay, so welcome to My Guy Reviews, where we talk about media topics such as films, games, books. Occasionally, music didn't work out for us.
Is it us?
Because I didn't know anything. So one of us will bring a topic and the other will come in blind. But this week we've got a joint topic as I wanted to talk about some, after last week's or last month's episode by now with all the issues, the release of Zombieland 2. So today's topic is better than Zombieland, not anything in this series, where we're going to talk about hopefully some other zombie media that across the ages that we would recommend and that we think maybe take the slot of better than either of the Zombieland movies. So I've asked you to.
So I came through thinking, because I know you love the film Predators, is that allowed? Which is just zombie films.
Zombie films, or it can be loosely rated. I've got a couple of things that I do want to mention that are only slightly zombie related, but
okay.
Yeah, so you wanted to go through in year order still, right?
I was looking at mine. Mine started in the 2000s, so they don't really, except for one. So there isn't really much in terms of time order. Okay, but we can start with any.
It might just be you talking, then me talking for ages, then you talking for ages.
I think let's do a zombie topic each, and then we'll contribute to each other, and then the next person starts with their one. Yeah. That way, we'll just jump around.
It's too late. You already decided on age, so I've got a plan now. So
okay.
Year, so what we'll do is we'll say what the next year is. We'll start with the earliest. We'll say what year we've got, and whoever's got the earliest year at that time talks about their thing. So my first one, the year is 1978. What year is yours?
1968.
There we go. And you know where I'm going with this, which means you get to talk first. What's your 1968 film?
Oh, he got me. So mine is Night of the Living Dead. So this is the original black and white version, but I saw this in color. So I'll talk about it in terms of color release. But
version, yes.
Yeah. So George A. Romero's the very first kind of, I guess, real. It was an independent film anyway, but first in major zombie film, maybe breakout zombie film of all time.
Real hit. Yeah.
And also, obviously, I've got a few more George A. Romero films to talk about later, but I think he's the founding father of this genre. And people should. Yeah.
There was another director with him at the time. Do you remember his name? I can't remember. Because I remember that this film was actually co-produced by someone else as well. Then, because you might know of Return of the Living Dead. You know that movie?
Yes.
That was produced by the other director of this movie, because they sort of split off the rights to the Of the Dead series. So that person could have Of the Living Dead, and George Romero got to keep all the Of the Dead movies. The first 3 movie trilogy box set is something that was a prized possession. Definitely got me into zombie movies when I was a teenager. So tell us more about Night of the Living Dead.
Okay,
I've got a list of questions, main things. What are the zombies like? Horror, is it scary? And what is unique about the film?
Oh, I like this. Okay, so what are the zombies like? So this is OG original zombies. They walk really slow. They pound. So the premise of the film is there's a zombie outbreak, and a number of people in Pennsylvania end up in this house by the end of it. It's a farmhouse. It's about a little bit into the film anyway. So they go in there, and then they start to barricade themselves into that home, and the zombie outbreak is kind of outside. So what I loved about this film was it's more, because it's an independent film and the budget wasn't massive, but it grossed like tons of money worldwide and it was a huge hit. But culturally, and the way he'd done the film, it felt very claustrophobic. Like you're stuck in a house, and there's something going on outside, and
that break
threat
through the holes in the wall and the door, like proper classic zombie action.
And it's great because it was a wooden house, so they could break through. It wasn't a brick house. It wasn't like, okay, they're in a safe house, which is a thing that's in one of George A. Romero's later films. But in this one, they're in a brick house, so they can pound the windows and the doors long enough and cracks would appear. And that's what I loved about this film, was there was no kind of like safe moment. Like 30 Days of Dark is one of my favorite kind of newer vampire-y films, and they're stuck in darkness for 30 days, but they find a safe place to be havened in, and if they wanted they could stay in that location for a larger period of time. But the good thing about this was at some point they had to make a decision on what they wanted to do. They had to leave their house or try and barricade themselves within the house, even more so. And that's what I loved about the film. So this film was like, it introduced the zombie genre. It's about a couple of people trying to survive the zombie apocalypse inside the house, but actually you see the character development more than just kind of concentrating on the zombies at this point, because I think the budget was quite low. The scares weren't traditional scares, but they're more kind of psychological scares, I think, because there's things going on that you're unaware of and you're following this kind of like these crew of people. And I think what came out of this film as time went on is kind of the race and gender thing more so. There's a black protagonist in this film, which there'd been black characters in films before, but that's not something that had kind of like the main hyper masculine kind of hero character who was who's got to lead kind of like
a normal person, or like a
but like
really?
I guess he didn't. Many black African American characters didn't have the main lead in a film, or if they did, they tended to die in horror films first, or one of the few earlier people. And he was the guy who stayed till the very end. Spoiler alert. For this film from the 68.
Spoiler. Yeah, I mean, can we talk about the very ending then? We have to spoilers for this.
Yes.
Like silence this video or the audio for like 20 seconds while we say it.
2 minutes.
Okay.
So I'm sure we'll talk about it a bit longer than that. But if you haven't seen a film from 1968, we're sorry. We apologize personally. But spoiler.
Yeah, but it's definitely got social commentary about racism and stuff in there. But no one survives in this one. And the tragic thing is that the coloured guy, the black guy at the end, who makes it all the way to the end, ends up being shot just by rednecks with guns, pretty much.
Yeah, they think he's the zombie. They're
just out to get rid of the zombies, and they're like, just shoot that guy, and he just gets shot through the windows. What a tragic end. And
what's great is when they actually came out the house, and you see the zombies for at the very end of the film, and you see how slow moving they are, that they could have always outrun them or outwalked them. They possibly could have, unless if they got really grabbed by a whole bunch of them, and then then it's too late. But you're right. The ending is something that came out. I remember watching the film and thinking, oh, he survived. It's the end of the film. But no, there was this one more twist end to the film, which I've seen thereafter in many other films. But to see it the very first time in this sort of film back in 68.
It wasn't expected, was it?
No. I think I'd seen other films do it before, because I watched this a lot later. I didn't watch it in 1968 like most people. I watched it and became aware of it in the 2000s.
I watched it when it came out.
I know.
I'm not that old.
You're immortal. Quick things to point about. So this is like the very first kind of, and it was such a small budget independent film. And to kind of fundraise for this film as well, they all kind of chipped in. They invested their own kind of money, so they got the budget to about $100,000 US, which is a substantial amount of money. But the film went on to gross like 330 million US worldwide, so it became a huge box office hit, and huge returns as well. And obviously, I'm sure in terms of DVD sales and stuff, as time went on. But I think it's the legacy that's the key thing with this one. I think the film was great. came out, and then there'd be people like Wes Craven who talk about it. I'm sure, John Carpenter, all these other kind of horror key people who've taken horror in a different direction after this have really always talked back about how great this film was.
That's
and
true.
I think,
yeah.
and it's been spoofed in stuff as well. I'm sure, like it's if you've seen anything that's pop culture related, Simpsons episode, I'm sure there's one that references this as well.
Because I suppose before this, there were zombie movies before this, but they were always just a bit of classic horror.
Yeah.
It's an excuse for horror. But this one actually said something else. It had more substance to it. And then ever since then, this Of the Dead series tried to say something every time. And yeah, as you say, other people made movies that actually could stand up as more than just a horror fest. Like, it's not just effects. We've got something to say. We've got characters and things like that.
Yeah, and that's what you realize when you're into that house and you're stuck in there for the next hour or so, and you're hearing these conversations and things going on outside. And I think it's not just a horror film. We's more to it, so it's well worth the watch. It's definitely the OG.
I'll consider it. While we're recommending these things, what I thought we could do is at the end we'll pick two that the other person has talked about to go on an absolute final list of recommended top 5.
Okay, I'm with you.
And then we'll throw in one of our own if our favourite one isn't picked. And we can make a top 6, top 5 at the end. Okay, so can we move on to my next 1978 now?
I thought you'd start there, which is you know what? But before you talk about it, not many sequels are talked about in high regard, and okay. I think you're talking about a sequel.
Yes,
and this is one of the rare sequels that are always talked about becoming an absolute classic. Like the first film is incredible, groundbreaking, but this movie that you're about to talk about, which is the sequel, is just known as one of the best films ever made. Like especially in terms of its horror genre and everything else. So
So what's the movie?
So the next movie, and I'm guessing it's a George A. Romero film. It would be Martin.
Martin, what's that?
1978, Martin.
That's right. No,
it's a psychological horror thriller written and directed by.
I suppose if it's psychological horror, you could imagine they're zombies. I don't know. But no, it's Dawn of the Dead. Okay, so I'm glad you've got a lot to say about Night of the Living Dead. Night of the Living Dead. Because I was just going to go through like recommendations rather than going too deeply. But Dawn of the Dead is just one of my favourite zombie movies. One of the movies that got me into zombies and horror. It's the sequel to Night of the Living Dead, also by George A. Romero. It's known as the second in the Of the Dead trilogy, if you include Day of the Dead after that, which was a 1985 release, which is also pretty good. Not quite as good, but pretty good. And I just love Dawn of the Dead. How in this one they're not trapped in a house anymore, which I guess is what takes away points for you because you quite like that aspect. And I think you're right. That horror aspect of being enclosed and actually having a time limit was good in Night of the Living Dead. But Dawn of the Dead was more of a comment at consumerism. They end up it's more of a global scale phenomena by this point because obviously Night of the Living Dead, you're just enclosed in the house. They don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
But in this one, we get the idea that the whole planet possibly is experiencing this Armageddon-like return of the dead to life. The whole idea of shooting them in the head sort of comes up as well.
Yes.
Which kind of they figure out for themselves in Night of the Living Dead, rather than that. And they end up trapped in a shopping mall. This small group of survivors. And it's literally a lot of the film is just them surviving and getting bored of life of materialistic society where they basically end up shut in a shopping mall. They shut off the zombies from them, and they just try to live a sort of a dream life because they've got all this access to all this clothes and
everything, food.
They've got everything that consumer society would give them, and they kind of live the dream. And it's less about the zombies in a lot of case, and more about that. That just like all this stuff we surround ourselves by really necessary and or fulfilling? And I love how slow and sort of arty it is, but that slowness sort of drags you through this to the point where they start getting silly and they start letting their guard down. They kind of seem bored of their lives as well, and eventually, letting their guard down ends up bringing on the zombies. Also, there's a roaming group of motorcyclists as well that decide to break into the mall, which doesn't help.
Mall, yeah. And they all come charging in slowly.
Yeah, and just ride around on the bottom floor, don't really do much, and then leave. But they let all the zombies in, and then they have someone gets bitten. One of the guys gets bitten, and they're slowly becoming a zombie. They have to finish the guy off because he's turning. And yeah, I mean, it's good because it's got a personal element as well. They've got the personal characters and how one of them ends up in a relationship with the sort of with the other, or they started off that way anyway. But it all gets it all ties into that whole boredom of society in the end. But there is a lot of a bit more. Well, it's in proper color this time. You got a bit more gore and biting and blood, which is nice, and lots of comic sort of blood splatter, which is great. Mixed in with that sort of social commentary. And eventually they do escape in this one for a pseudo happy ending, or some of them escape.
So we're left to assume, yeah.
Yeah, we don't know what really happens because they're off going off in a helicopter in the end. They start off in a helicopter early on. They eventually manage to escape in a helicopter as well. But helicopters don't have a lot of capacity for fuel. They can't go very far without. They're not planes, you know. I know you can in video games or even films you see them fly around a lot and very vast distances, but helicopters only have a short range. So eventually they're going to have to land. They're going to have to try and find fuel again, and they're going to be in the same circumstances where they're trapped in this worldwide apocalypse that hasn't really been ended yet. So it's just people surviving in it.
Yeah, I think what I loved about this one was, as with all sequels, you got bigger, badder. So the zombies were in the first one, because the budget is very limited. You know, the special effects, and you see the zombies a little bit. You don't see them loads. In this one, the zombies are a lot more. You can tell they've put the time and effort into the effects, because the difference between this and Zack Snyder's zombies, where this one, they look different. A lot of them look quite different. So they look like real people who've been turned into zombies. So when they attack the shopping mall or they attack the people, they almost had different personalities because they look different. With Zack Snyder's one, which I really love his film, which we'll talk about at some point, but they look very similar, and they all kind of run at you the same. They all look like, slim, fast people who've been turned into zombies. While in here, you got different sizes, different people turned into zombies, and the effects and all of that back in 78 was amazing. And you could tell that he had upped the factor of everything. So, storytelling, like you said, he's taken a different element, was kind of prominent at that time, where commercialism, where, now they're given everything free of charge. They live in the shopping mall. They've got access to all the best clothes that are available, all the TVs, all the electronics, everything. And yet, people become bored of that. While in the other one, he's taken an issue that was predominantly happening at that time, which is about kind of racial commentary. So his storytelling's evolved as well, and yet he's still got the horror element. And I think this was actually, I know it's not claustrophobic as much as the previous one, but there were so many different ways that the zombies could get in. So you had some in the basement, you had them knocking at the front doors, and even when they do finally get in, and you think I think he's in the control room or something, and they're still pounding at the doors and they break the doors in, you still have that element that even though they're in a shopping mall and it feels safer, it's actually not.
It could break at any moment. And there's there's loads of little moments, when they're moving things in and out and such. I think that maybe because they're preparing for the bikers and that, and like all those different holes that they sort of reveal that the zombies, the weak points that the zombies could attack, and it could all end in a moment. But I think they've got the horror they're always momentary in this one rather than constant, like in Night of the Living Dead. And also, the horror is more of an existential horror as well. The whole idea of everything in society changing and just being slowly but surely attacked and consumed by zombies, by the people at large. It's kind of a bigger kind of horror rather than that same sort of claustrophobic feel. And also, I didn't mention what the zombies are like. Of course, they're mostly slow still in this one, because we've started off with fairly slow zombies. They can run a little bit, but they kind of sort of just lean forward and meander forward. But this one actually has a reveal of the zombie source, although it's kept vague. We don't know for sure. But I don't know if you remember this, but someone mentions in it that this is what was supposed to happen when there's no more room left in hell.
Oh yes, yeah, someone did say that. Yeah,
that's the idea that the whole of Earth is rising because there's no room left in hell, which is quite different to the modern. Most of the time, it's a virus these days, so it's a different level. Okay.
Yeah, so while we're talking about this, I want to talk about the remake because it's on my list.
Yeah, okay.
And I do want to talk about it. So
idea.
I don't like Zack Snyder as a director. Let's put it out there. I did not like Man of Steel, Watchmen, 300, Sucker Punch, Batman v Superman,
I liked it. It was okay.
Half of Justice League. All of them. Did not like any of them. But his first film, which was a remake of Dawn of the Dead, I loved that film.
Wow,
absolutely loved it. Now, obviously, he changes. So the zombies have changed now in his version. So the very first movie he does is a remake of an absolute horror classic, and he
Which
takes
is
the
a problem
zombies.
in the first place. Taking the biggest success and then having to remake it is a hard job.
Oh, of course it is, yeah. But it, highly successful film as well. So now the zombies ran. So first we've always had slow walking zombies that would latch on to you if you couldn't outspark them. What I loved about this film was I remember the start of the film when she's going home, she's a nurse, and they're in bed and they wake up, and the husband goes to the corridor, and the corridor's quite dark, and there's this little girl, and she was like, "Oh, go help the little girl. It must be the neighbor's daughter," and that's the girl who's turned into the zombie. And I remember when I watched this film, there's a thing that said you never kill kids in films.
Yeah.
And then she did this jump, and she ran down the corridor towards our main female lead. And from that moment on, I was like, "This is amazing." I was hooked in from that very first kind of thing.
They shot I
was like, no, they didn't kill the child. That's the thing.
Okay.
So the child killed the grown up, and then she ran down the corridor and she started pounding on the door. So this was a new type of zombie I hadn't seen. I had seen in 28 Days Later, but I hadn't seen it in a while. It took me 2 years to watch it again.
28 Days Later did it first.
But what I loved was, that those elements where, so still in the house, she gets pounded by the door. She finally escapes, gets in the car, and she can see all this commotion going around, all the zombies attacking these humans and stuff. And finally, she kind of thinks she's safe. Car crashes. It's just so much happens in the first 15 minutes to really set the scene that this, everything is just, it's gone tits up. The whole world is kind of chaotic. They make it to the shopping mall, and then it plays out similar. I think about, at least half an hour or so, it's pretty much similar. They're all in the shopping mall again. They're all kind of buying stuff, and then, they get the zombie outbreak. But what was clever and a couple of twists in the film was Michael Pfeiffer's girlfriend or wife, she was pregnant. And she had been bitten by a zombie. So when she gave birth to a baby, that was a zombie baby.
Zombie baby, awesome.
And so they killed Michael Pfeiffer, they killed the wife, and they killed the baby off screen. So you never see the baby zombie get killed, but you hear the gunshot go off. So they couldn't even kill a baby zombie in the film, which is I guess Hollywood, right?
I mean, I remember it quite differently. I remember both of those things being, yes, you went and did it. You had the zombie kids and you had the zombie babies and you killed them. Even though they're off screen, like, it still had the subject matter.
Yeah, but it's just they never show it. They just kind of leave it to the thing. But also what was cool was this was the first time, when they went to the rooftop and there was them on one side, and there's this other guy. And what they did was they'd write the name of a celebrity-looking zombie, and then he would do a headshot.
Oh,
So
yeah.
the other guy was like a sniper, and
Playing a game.
yeah, and so those elements were different, and they actually try and escape in this film out of the shopping mall, and then they try and make it as far as they get to a boat, and the film kind of ends there, and then in the credits you see what happens and their fate after that. So slowly they all start dying anyway, and then they get to land, and you think, oh, it's all good, they're all safe.
Oh, yeah.
But then the camcorder drops on the floor, and we
yeah.
see the zombies attacking them, and they're kind of left, and that's kind of left ambiguous. So he's
Excellent.
kind of played homage to the end of the original as well, kind of like giving it a nod, that saying, it's still ambiguous as to what happened. But even though, current Hollywoods would say they need to survive, or there needs to be an ending with something, he gave them that nice ending, but then he still paid homage to the original, I think. I love this film. This is one of my only original, whenever there's a classic film that's made, like Lion King, and then you make another one, and I hate it. So Dawn of the Dead I loved, and then they did a remake, and I really liked it. And I normally say I hate it when they remake films that I loved,
but the thing
this
is
one.
I would give it to them. Thing is, I love Dawn of the Dead, the original, so I can't compare it. But that's probably where I can give it props, because it doesn't make itself comparable anyway, because it does everything differently, which is a good thing. If they tried to remake it shot for shot, scene by scene, keep the same plot, that's where they would have gone wrong. But they actually went way different, really. So yeah, I would call it, it's not even a remake really, it's got the same name and a zombie premise, but it's a completely different movie. So yeah, I can give it that, definitely. And also, now you mentioned the zombie kids, I remember Dawn of the Dead also had an infamous scene where they shoot a few kids on screen, which is remembered, which is probably why I thought yes, they brought it in this one as well. It's only a moment where some zombie kids charge at them, they push them back, shoot them. But yeah, Dawn of the Dead did it on screen.
It did, yeah. So that's our 1978 and 2004.
2004.
So what's your next year? Because mine isn't till 2002
yours
now.
Is ages now, because I mean
mine's all 2000s. I told you everything I love happened in the year 2000.
So yeah, this might end up being a longer episode. We might have to record it over several days. My next one is 1983.
Okay.
Do you know what it is?
Day of the Dead.
No, Day of the Dead was 1985, and I'm not going to bother talking about it anymore.
Okay. Then 1983.
So 1983, this one you can actually, I definitely recommend, because you can actually watch this on YouTube for free right now. So I recommend anyone, any viewer, a listener would do that. It's only about 13 minutes long.
Okay, cool.
You figured out what it is yet?
Nope.
No, you haven't. That's excellent. So you might not remember this one or even care about it, but this is Michael Jackson's Thriller.
I see what
the
you
music
mean.
video.
Yes, no, you're right.
Now
Another classic.
This is definitely a memorable classic for me. Obviously, we've got the 1980s was full of what we knew at the time as video nasties, which was where people would go rent a video and they'd just be really gory and kind of all bad, according to mainstream media. Like a lot of them were low budget as well. But yeah, Michael Jackson's Thriller. I'm sure most people have heard of the song and maybe have seen the music video. But it's a feature. It's not feature length. It's a fairly long. It's basically a short movie.
Yeah. With
the song being central to it. I don't want to talk too much about it to spoil it, but because you can go and watch it right now, literally. 14 minutes. Less than 14 minutes long. Go watch it. It's a brilliant short, and yes, yes, exactly. You know the tune. I'm not sure that was it, but you know it. And yeah, the zombies in this one, they are actually scary. They are the horror. They are done really well. It was directed by, I think, the guy that did American Werewolf in London or something like that.
He definitely did the special effects.
John Landis. Yeah, so the effects are really good. It really sums up the best of that sort of zombie horror being enclosed space, like you were talking about. So yeah, without any spoilers for the rest of it, like you get to see zombies actually clawing out of the ground, which was just great and horrific, and zombies going through like the wall, the wooden knocking through a wooden wall and stuff. So highly recommend. Anything else you want to say about that in terms of without the spoiling the rest of it?
Yeah. So like you said, so this is based on the guy who did special effects from American Werewolf in London. And if you've ever seen the film and you've seen the transformation of that
Yes.
piece near the end, it's incredible. I think still to this day, in my opinion, it holds up because it's practical effects and stuff. And he takes that and he brings that into a music video. But whenever you think music videos to that point, you always thought kind of like it's just a song. And then there's some
People
dancing around it, and that's it. But
now.
this one had a story. This was actually a film. This was I remember when this came out, and then people talk about it still to this day, how they'd rent it out from a video box, and you could get a VHS which was this long, and it was the film. It's almost like it normally music videos are just as short. It's the song. They could have been doing it at a concert, or it's a background video or whatever. But this was a concept thing, and I think this was first of its kind. So it's groundbreaking, and it's incredible to also bring in the zombie genre into what is one of the most successful songs or albums of all time. Thereafter, yes, it's incredible to watch.
Yeah, I had it on. My sister had it on VHS. I was a bit young to own it myself on VHS, but I watched. I think I must have watched it. I don't know how many times, so many times, as a kid, and I think it actually it really says what is scary about zombies to me, and gave me that love of horror. And it because it's a music video, it's not you can like not be as scared of it as well. I was never particularly scared of things, but maybe that helps me never be scared of like sort of horror movies. But yeah, definitely one I would recommend. So you still not got anything till the 2000s? So
nothing till the 2000s.
I've got loads of stuff, like basically video games now. I mean, 80s video nasties in general are a thing, but then we've I mean, well, I'm going to give some.
I've got one video game, but it's 2009.
Okay.
That's what I mean. Everything that I've got down is that decade.
Okay. So
that's when I was growing up. So that's when I would have been about 10, right? Growing up when we're watching loads of zombie stuff. That's when I came into it, I guess.
Well, I'm going to try. I'll try and go through them all in like fairly briefly then, because there's some that I just want to give honourable mentions to anyway. And yeah, just talk briefly about each one. There's a whole load of video games, and the first one is Zombies on the Sega Mega Drive and SNES. Did you ever play this one?
Nope. I never had a Sega Mega Drive with a SNES.
It's known as Zombies Ate My Neighbors in America, but in Europe it was named Zombies. And you play as a boy or a girl, or you can play two-player. It's an isometric sort of look, or side on, top down but side on view.
Okay, cool.
Sort of video game where you shoot a water pistol, which I guess is holy water, because it kills the zombies, and you get a whole load of other sort of item pickups and stuff. But this was so this is a good 8-bit game if you want to look it up. Maybe get it on an emulator, or something like that. It'd be the easiest way to look at it. But a bit like sort of Thriller came around, and when zombies were really well known, and it sort of uses the sort of tropes that everyone knew. That's the same case for Zombies. So it actually had loads of different monsters in it, loads of different horror movie monsters. It's got mummies, it's got werewolves.
Oh, cool.
It's got
cabin in the woods.
It's got a giant baby in it as well as a boss. It's just because of like what is it? Attack of the 50-Foot Woman. I think it's their version. So they did a giant baby that I found hard to kill. You had to use a specific weapon to defeat it, I think. Yeah, that was a good game. That's mostly an honourable mention, but I think it's a great use of zombies and just encapsulating all those horror things. And then the next one is 1994, Corpse Killer on the Sega Saturn. This one I'm not recommending, but I'm just mentioning.
Okay, don't play it.
Just mentioning it. Yeah, don't play it. It's such a good idea. It's supposed to be an on-rail shooter using live video recording, which was a big thing in the mid 90s that they were trying to do, because CDs were just becoming technology for gaming. So they thought, stick live video on there.
Oh yeah, I know what you mean. Yes, so you had like cutscenes with real people.
Yeah, but actually the whole thing was real video, and they had sort of digitized zombie people come up.
Okay.
But the problem with it is that all of the shooting scenes were just a side-on pan of something, of like a scene. So there was none of the sort of going around corners and the zombies jumping out at you. And the other downside was that the zombies that the way they digitized it just looked terrible, and they didn't look like they were in the scene, and they just it's such a letdown. But then it was a very experimental time. But the reason I need to mention this one is because one, it has got a scary element to it, because it was live video at a time when people weren't used to that, and it's definitely got that 80s video nasty vibe to it.
Yeah,
that's one thing. And also the other thing is that this was actually a type of zombie in here that we don't see as much, because I like the fact there's three types of zombies. We've mentioned two already. There's the virus one that comes up later, and the sort of apocalypse one, which we've just talked about before. But the third one is a voodoo zombies, where they're magically raised, and you don't see that very often. And
like
in this
House of the Dead.
So that's one thing I love about this, and I think by the very end you have an end boss with sort of a voodoo sort of priest guy, and he's throwing deadly skull things at you, magical skulls at you, and zombies are rising. And I just love that idea. Looking back at it now, it looks terrible. It's not recommended to try it, but to look at the sort of the cutscenes, I think it's worth seeing for something different. Which then brings me to 1996, which is the arcade of House of the Dead, the original, which is basically a rail shooter where you shoot zombies, but it's done better.
And then turned into a terrible film.
Yeah. I mean, did they turn it into the actual film in the end? Yes, I think you mentioned that before, actually.
Yeah, House of the Dead was turned into film. Yeah, it's terrible. That's why I've not put it on my list.
Why not on there? Okay, so House of the Dead, I think people are more knowledgeable about, probably. And also, I will mention the 2009 one now as well, because they did make a version for the PS3, and I have talked about it before, I think. So I don't know what else I need to say about it, except that it's a rail shooter. The first one is actually set in a house, and you're shooting zombies. I don't know if you could get to save victims and stuff like that, innocent people, but it's just a classic rail shooter, really. And in the arcade, it was for me, seeing it in the arcade was always amazing. I really wish it was still out there in the arcade, the original 1996 version. The zombies in this one are kind of still slow, but they are a bit faster. They do pop up rather dramatically sometimes, which is
they slowly walk towards the screen, and then sometimes they speed up, don't they? It's not always consistent, so sometimes but it's good because they do pop up, because you'll be just kind of looking at the screen, and then boom, there'll be a jump scare.
Exactly. That's how a rail shooter is supposed to be done. You look around a corner, and then something jumps up at you, and you have to get in there quickly. And because it's an arcade machine, they want you to die and have to put in more money. So they have incredibly unfair things jumping up at you, sometimes throwing stuff at you, just like any classic rail shooter, really. And this one is just so memorable. If you can play it, I would recommend playing it. But you're only really likely to be able to play. I think the best way to play it is to play the House of the Dead Overkill on the PS3. Because you can't really play House of the Dead, the original, on any system. They brought out the sequels on PS4, on Dreamcast, all sorts. But I think Sega weren't too happy with the original because it's a bit weaker in some respects, and they've improved on it. But they never really went back to that house. They always expanded to all sorts of. I liked House of the Dead 2 because it's in the city, but House of the Dead 3 and 4, which are the ones they mostly show us, they mostly remake, are just set in boring science labs and stuff, and just I don't find those interesting. So I want to see the original arcade out again. So I would recommend playing the PS3 version. Okay, so next one. There's a few more to go. Okay, I want to mention 1997.
97, yeah.
Have you played this one? Nightmare Creatures.
No,
you don't know this one at all.
No, I've not heard of this.
Okay, this one again is to do with mutations, and most of it isn't zombies. But this is an honourable mention really. It's set in London, and someone's been doing experiments and stuff. I think actually, the story is something to do with them doing experiments back before the big Great Fire of London, which sort of put an end to the experiments. But now it's come back, someone's experimenting again, and it's actually set in the 19th century, so it's kind of ye olde London.
Brilliant.
And you play as a guy called Ignatius or a lady called Nadia, and you go through level by level collecting stuff like that. But until you can reach, defeating all the different nightmare creatures, and until you get to the fiery end and finally take out Adam Crowley, who's the guy that started all this again in London. But the thing that I remember about this very specifically are the zombies at the beginning. Now, most of the time, you decapitate a zombie or you shoot a zombie, they're dead.
Yes.
But, I mean, the beginning of this game, the very first creature you meet is a zombie, and even though this is it's supposed to be experiments to do this, it's got a very spiritual, dark atmosphere to the whole game, especially the first level and a later cemetery level. But you can do with this game, there's a hard attack you could do if you did a run up and you sliced with your either sword or this pole arm thing, and you could do that, and you could actually slice the zombie completely in half to destroy it, which I think was a great move. But if you just left a little bit of distance, you'd end up slicing the head off, which was fun.
Yeah.
And the zombie would just keep walking without a head, which was so creepy. Just keep stumbling towards you.
So it wouldn't die anyway. So it wouldn't fall off and start crawling at any point. It just keep going at you.
The only way to kill it was to actually slice it completely in half, get the body completely in half.
Sounds difficult now.
And if you use the soft hit, which would kill most other things, if you did a soft hit over and over and over with combos, it'd kill it. But with this one, if you hit it enough times, it would go down, and you'd be like, "Yes, I've killed it." You'd be wandering around, and you see in the corner of your eye in this dark cemetery, it's coming up again. It's sitting back up. Freaking nice. Scary. And I remember my nephew actually was scared of this game. He was physically scared of this game, even though it's not the best detailed. It's quite an old PlayStation 1 game. So but he was scared of it because it has got a good horror vibe to it. So yeah, honourable mention because it's not purely about zombies. There's only certain moments with zombies, but it's so good for that reason. So 1996, 1999, general talk about Resident Evil. Just mention it. It is a big thing. Video game wise, it's quite renowned. And Silent Hill series wasn't really zombies, but I prefer the Silent Hill series to Resident Evil. I found the management of resources quite annoying in the Resident Evil games. I don't know about you.
I didn't play any of the games, but I watched all the films. I like the Resident Evil films, but I haven't put them on my list.
Yeah, I didn't think the films were great.
Because I don't know if they're better than Zombieland or not.
No, I don't think they are.
That's the thing. Like, I enjoy them all, and especially like number 2, I think that's better. But as a whole, are they better than Zombieland 1 and 2? And I think better than 2 maybe, but not as good as 1. So no.
Yeah, I agree. So I'm almost up to your 2009, I think it is. So
2002 is my first one.
oh, you got 2002. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, well, go then. I'll let you in.
Well, I'm talking about 2002's the very first introduction of a Danny Boyle horror film.
Okay.
And it's the very first time we saw zombies run.
Aha, so this is the one.
This is the one. 28 Days Later.
28 days later. Okay.
This is a British film. It's flying the flag for us.
Yeah.
So it got released in the UK. Why have I got it down as 2002? I thought it got released in 2002. But it's come up as 07. I thought it was there. I'm sure it was made before Dawn of the Dead.
You can talk about it now either way. I'm not gonna stop you talking about it.
Oh yeah, 28 days later. Sorry, not 28 weeks. Well, I've got it down. 2002 was the film. Yes, it was 2002. Okay. So this was Danny Boyle's film. So Danny Boyle obviously has gone on to do incredible films like Slumdog Millionaire, 127 Hours Later, Trainspotting. I think he did before this. Shallow Grave, The Beach, Sunshine. So all sorts of different films, and this was his first kind of real take into horror. And also for films like, because he did stuff like Trainspotting, he did The Beach, so very different films like Trainspotting compared to The Beach, and then he did 28 Days Later. So he's kind of like the mindset of a person like that is incredible. Like, he's jumping around from everywhere, and it's because it's a British film, our films don't tend to have massive budgets as well. So it's like an $8 million film.
Yeah, they tend to be contained to London.
Yeah, and Dawn of the Dead, for example, so Zack Snyder's film would have been about 25 million budget. So he had 8 million to turn this into a film. And some of the most impressive things is the actual start of the film. Like, there's this virus that's been unleashed. Things have happened around London. But this guy who's in a coma wakes up, and then he comes out of the hospital, and you're like, oh my God, look what's happened. London is absolutely emptied. It looks incredible for such a small budgeted film. He looks around, there's iconic streets in London that we both would well aware of, and there's not a single person.
Didn't they? They actually filmed this in London in like the early hours, I think.
Yeah, and there's literally nothing, and it's amazing. It feels eerie from the very first moment. So after the virus breaks out and he wakes up out of the hospital and he's walking down the corridors, there's not a single person there, and he shows you these iconic shots in London empty. I loved it. I was just like, this is incredible. Like, because this virus is everywhere, zombies are everywhere, but he's made it so eerie and actually at the same time so lonely. It was crazy because you're in the biggest city in this country and most busiest city as well, and yet he can, he's shown it in such a way. And anyway, so then he comes out and then he starts to meet people, and then he learns about the zombie virus. But the very first moment we see the zombies, they're sprinting. It's the very first time this actually happened before all the other kind of films had kind of retaken it. And this is what I loved about this film, was just that this virus happened. 28 days later, this guy wakes up from the coma and he sees the aftermath of all of that. And he's living that world. We're seeing it through his eyes for the very first time. We're seeing the world as he's seeing it for the very first time. There's people who are living in flats really high up, staying away from the ground. People who in shops pulling down the shutters, really kind of like scavenging to kind of get by.
That's
and
so London as well.
Yeah, but it feels very real and it feels very gritty as well. And it was just an incredible kind of film about what would happen or what happened. An outbreak happened, but then they show us nothing. 28 days later, this is what happens. I loved it. It's one of my favorite horror films. A lot of good jump scares in this, and also because he sped up the zombies, they looked amazing. Also, for a film that's such a small budget, it didn't feel like a small budget film as well. Because when you got the shots of London, and then obviously he'll then shoot elsewhere, but to get those shots made it feel like this is a massive film. This is affected everywhere, And then, as they find out at the very end, that if the zombies slowly started to kind of die off because they didn't have enough, if they don't get enough flesh and meat and stuff, and they die off anyway. So you just got to keep a safe distance from them in the end, and we can outrun them. But there's a moment he's driving down the motorway, and the motorway's all clear. All these roads and places that, being in England, we appreciate when he shows me that, and I'm just like, yeah, I get that. Look, this is a road I would have been down. I've crossed that bridge, and there's not a single soul there. It's amazing. I loved it. I think he did an incredible job. The zombies look different. I think he sped them up, which was a cool little feature as well. And it was scary as well, because there's bits where there's good jump scares in this as well. Okay. Highly recommended. It's one of my favorites.
Yeah, I need to rewatch this one, I think. I did like it at the time. I remember because me and my friends at that time were so into zombies as it is. Definitely it was a refreshing look at zombies. And yeah, the faster nature of them definitely helps for a different feel and a different atmosphere. But for me, looking backwards though, I always think of this film, I like slow zombies, and as much as they're useful for this film and they're good, it's almost like they're not really zombies if they're not slow and sort of stumbling for me. They're almost like super mutants or something else. But I can agree that I really liked the movie at the time, and I definitely need to give it a rewatch.
I think because the stuff that we talked about, like Dawn of the Dead, 1978, I think that's the pinnacle of horror, the zombie stuff. And then there's movies after that weren't that good, weren't that well received, may have done really well. And then you have this quiet period where the zombie stuff was still happening, but wasn't in a huge commercial film to a point where people were like universally praising it and saying this has kickstarted a revival of the genre. And that's why I say 2000 for me is the time where zombies really came back in the forefront. Because of this film kind of really kickstarted that revival, because 2 years later you had Zack Snyder's Dawn of the Dead remake. Couple of all my movies kind of really start after this point, because I'm sure they all watched this and they thought back to this specific film and said, Planet Terror, which was the second part of Grindhouse film, came after this, and World War Z, the Brad Pitt film with all the running zombies, all of that I think was inspired by this film, because it became a big hit.
You didn't have to be slow zombies anymore, because with zombies that are slow you always have to be trapped somewhere for them to be scary, whereas if they can run then you're in danger all the time, and you can be outside and do a bit more, you've got a bit more room to move. And I think you're right, like all of my ones before this point, or in the 90s, were all video games. So I think video games had a strong presence for zombies all that time. But yeah, zombies in films were very much relegated to very cheaply made movies and things that people weren't interested in, really.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I think also because once this film came out, I mean, you didn't have to have quick zombies, but it's such a good horror film with zombie elements that made everyone want to say, okay, let's do zombie this, zombie that. Some quick zombies, some slow zombies. Even George A. Romero got a big studio to back Land of the Dead, which he was making independent films. Like he got a budget of 15 to 20 million for that film. So people were really like, oh yeah, because Dawn of the 28 Days Later is this huge hit, breakout hit, and it's about zombies. Let's greenlight so many things about zombies thereafter, and I think this is what kickstarted that the zombie trend.
I'll give it props for that, definitely. And as I say, I remember it fondly. Okay, so what's the next date?
So my next one was 2004.
2004. You've already talked about that one. Is that
no,
the one?
Another one. 2004.
Oh, okay. What is it?
2004 is a directorial. It's his directorial debut, but it's a film directed by an incredible director. If it is his directorial debut, it's even better. It's not his directorial. It's his second film, but yeah, I call it his directorial debut. Shaun of the Dead, Edgar Wright.
Dead, of course.
Incredible zombie comedy film that is just so much better than Zombieland, hands down. Like this Edgar Wright's incredible. Plus, he got two amazing people to work and help him with the script or help make that film funny. They may have improvised a lot in Simon Pegg and, of course, Nick Frost. And there are some scary bits in it, and the comedy's there as well. And I think so many films have kind of tried to do this thereafter. Zombieland wouldn't have existed if it wasn't for this film.
They kind of want to be Shaun of the Dead.
Yes,
this is an amazing movie. I agree. I would have definitely had it in my honourable mentions, but it is a turning point in zombie movies to the point where you can actually have such a good comedy made out of it.
Yeah, and I love that their day-to-day life is almost like just they wake up, they go to work. He's a salesman, and it's pretty much he's got a zombie-like life. He goes to the same corner shop. He does the same thing, and he doesn't notice anything around him, which is amazing. And it's not until then they go out for the night out. They come home and he does his same steps again. He doesn't even notice the zombie apocalypse around him. Yeah. It's incredible. One of the best things is obviously Bill Nighy's in here as well, but so many amazing people. But he takes a cricket bat. You know, when he goes to the car and it's something quintessential that is UK based is a cricket bat, because that's one of the sports we invented. And he runs out and he's hitting people. So in America, it's baseball bats, but it's so British to have a cricket bat.
Yeah, it's London again, isn't it?
Yeah, and then obviously, where else would you go other than a pub? Why not barricade yourself in a pub? So British again. There's so many elements of this that just made me think, if I was in this scenario, maybe I would do exactly the same thing or similar. And this is that trope that we talked about in Zombieland 2, where there's exactly the same group of people walking in the opposite direction, which is their same group of other people, which included like Martin Freeman and a few others. I loved it.
Yeah, which is what they ripped off in the Zombieland 2. The whole clones of themselves, people that are exactly the same as themselves. It came from Shaun of the Dead.
Yeah, it all came from here. So the zombies, slow-moving zombies.
Yeah.
But what's incredible is like this goes back to Dawn of the Dead. Zombies are very different sizes, different people. Makeup is incredible because there's this moment where they're fighting against this big zombie and they're throwing vinyls at her and stuff.
Yeah.
And then they meet other types of zombies throughout. And I love that. Like, you don't have the same kind of look in person all the time. They've actually had different zombies, so you almost give them all different characteristics. And that's such a clever thing to do in such a small budget film. Yeah. To spend that money on the makeup and getting that right, just nailing that. And that's something that's I appreciated. I'm not sure if, when you first watch it, you realize, there's so many different things going on.
And I think you can thank video games for that sort of variety in zombies as well, because they're the ones that first sort of realised, just doing the same thing over and over again is going to get boring. Let's have different things that need different approaches, such as the big zombie and the venomous zombie. You don't get that so much in Shaun of the Dead, but.
And at the very end, spoiler alert for the film, when Nick Frost is chained up and they're just playing video games together. Yes. So they're living their life the way they used to. And then also they found a way around having zombies. They gave them the mundane jobs that people didn't want. Yeah. So that they would be helping at shopping centres and stuff.
And that's such a reference to Dawn of the Dead, like the zombie thing. And also Day of the Dead with Bob the zombie where they introduce a zombie that's clearly got a bit of a brain still, and he's trying to use a gun, and that reference where he's just sitting there, you can still play video games with him, still be his mate. Yeah.
Oh, it's a great film, absolutely great film. So that's why I say the 2000s was the Renaissance, in my opinion. Like it started off with 28 days, 28 days later, then it moved on to this, which was incredible. I've already talked about the other 2004 film, which I really like, Dawn of the Dead. And then my next one isn't until 2007. So have you got anything in between?
I've got 2008. So yeah, you're first.
So 2008. So normally 2007. Yes. Normally I don't talk about films that I have to read subtitles for, but this one is incredible film. It got turned into. It has had its own remake. The remake isn't that bad, the US version, but the original is amazing. So found footage was big back in the early 2000s after Blair Witch and really after Paranormal Activity. But there's a Spanish film that came out in 2007, found footage,
Right.
and it centered around a reporter and her cameraman, and they had turned up to an apartment building where the firefighters were intervening in Barcelona, and the whole film is based in this apartment building, and the film is called REC. Have you heard of this one?
Rec, yeah, I have heard of it. Yeah, I haven't seen it.
And it's found footage, and basically you're following the camera crew and the reporter. She's kind of like the main person we follow throughout the whole thing. And in the first one, it's very vague as to what the zombie outbreak is about, and they go into that in more detail in the second one. But I haven't seen the second one, so I can't really talk about the Spanish-speaking one anyway. So, but in here, it's more of a like it's got all the elements I love about a horror film. You got the claustrophobia. You're in this apartment building complex. You got various houses, various flats and stuff, and you know there could be zombies in certain areas, and then they got to try and escape, and they put on these hazmat suits, and even though you got this team of firefighters, you feel kind of safe-ish with, but you're not, because they all start getting picked up one by one.
Wow, cool.
But what's good as well is, because it's found footage, there's a lot of kind of like found footage films that are coming out, good or bad. But this really suits this narrative of you follow this reporter through and you're seeing the things through her eyes. And there's moments where they turn on night vision. And night vision is, you know, when it all goes green and there's things behind her, or there's someone walking towards the camera. Lovely. I love this film. I think there was stuff about it's either demonic possessions, the Vatican had something to do with it.
Oh, excellent! Virus. I love that sort of thing.
I can't remember the outbreak as much. But so the zombies were great in this, and it's got that trope at the end where spoiler alert, but I won't spoil it. Something happens.
Yeah, don't spoil it for me.
And then, you know, the camera keeps rolling, or it gets turned off, because it's found footage. They find the footage at some point.
They find it,
but it's really good. The ending is amazing. The whole film is great.
Survive, the footage survives.
Well, there's a film called REC2, REC3, and REC4.
Have you seen those? Are they any good?
So from what I've heard, the first one I loved. The second one is still really well regarded. The other two, not so much.
Okay.
But because I haven't seen the others, but I think they were kind of, I think in his head he always had an idea of kind of finishing off the series, so it could have been, it could be that number 3 isn't as good, but number 4 is better because that's the filler film,
right? Maybe,
but they've all got quite good ratings, so like 68% fresh for number 2. On Rotten Tomatoes, I think number 3 is still quite highly rated-ish, maybe.
Okay.
But yeah, so I think 41% for number 3, so maybe not. And I think number 4 is the last one, and I guess he would have just wanted to end it. Maybe he had a 68%, so it's gone up. So yeah, so like I said, I think 4 gets it back on track. Maybe the third was a filler. But yeah, the first one is incredible. The actual remake is actually good. It does feel very shot for shot, like Let the Right One In, which is the film about the vampire and the girl. And the US remake is very much very similar. Very similar.
Shot, scene for scene, apart from a couple of changes.
Yeah, a couple of bits here and there, but yeah, but I love both films because they're such a good film. But in this one, it is shot for shot, but it's actually still quite good because you got good jump scares, you got that claustrophobic feel to it. The ending is slightly different in the US version to the Spanish version, but yeah, they're both worth a watch. Definitely highly recommend. Love them.
You'd recommend the Spanish over the US slightly?
If you got access to watch any of them, watch them. But if you only got access to the US version, I would still say watch that one because it's still a good film.
It's worth it. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, so I've got 2008 next. What you've got next?
So I did 07.
Yeah.
Then my next one is 08.
Okay, it's probably a different one. So you do mine is
definitely
08 to 18. it's a spread. So you can do yours first.
Okay, so mine is now a TV show. So I've talked about movies up to this point, right?
Yeah.
This is a TV show by a person called Charlie Brooker.
Okay.
Sorry, Charlie Brooker. You know him?
Yeah. Think so.
The guy behind Black Mirror.
Yeah.
He did a TV show. It's just a 6-part TV show in the UK called Dead Set.
Dead Set. Okay.
So this is like basically a zombie outbreak happens on the day of the Big Brother. So Big Brother was a TV show, a reality TV show where people go into this house and they live together. People watch the show, but they had no concept of what was going on in the outside world.
Yeah.
In that period of time, because they weren't. Yeah. They was just kind of, and so this TV show is based on these people going into the Big Brother house.
Yeah.
And then the zombie outbreak happening outside.
Excellent.
And it's spanned over 6 episodes. And then, the zombies eventually break into the Big Brother house, but they don't know if it's real or fake or what's going on.
Yeah.
Because in that show, if you ever watch the Big Brother show, obviously you have no concept of what's happening. So you don't know what the current affairs are or anything. Or is Big Brother, the show, playing a trick on you, that sort of thing?
Is it for fun? Yeah.
Yeah, I really, really like this show. I think it's still on Netflix. If you want to watch a TV show, I know The Walking Dead is one that people watch and they love, but this is quite short. This is definitely worth a watch. So the zombies are slowish, fastish. They're in between. They're not super quick, but it's good in that. What would happen if if you were stuck in that TV show? What would happen?
Yeah.
Would you believe what's going on in the outside world? Would you think someone's playing a trick on you? Those kind of things. But it's actually got some really good scary moments as well. As in, you've got the cameraman. The camera's in the Big Brother house, and you have a screen, and you see there's a zombie on one end, and the Big Brother person is on the other end. Stuff like that. And it's really good. I mean, Charlie Brooker's great anyway with Black Mirror.
It's hard to imagine exactly what you just described, but it sounds intriguing and definitely worth a look.
Definitely worth watch. And it's not that long because they're only about 5 or 6 episodes, and they're all about maybe 40 minutes each. So it's not that much, but it's definitely worth watch if you can still get your hands on that. Dead Set. My recommendation for TV.
Excellent. Okay, so anything else? I'm 2008 as well, so I guess I'll jump in.
Yeah, so my last thing is 2009, so yes, you jump in.
That is your last thing? Wow, okay. Okay, so 2008 to 2018, video games. Do you know what I'm going to mention briefly?
Briefly, Resident Evil?
No, from 2008.
I don't know, just guess. Borderlands?
I don't know if I'm sure we played this one together, I'm not sure.
It's Call of Duty, right?
Yes, it is. It's Call of Duty. I hate Call of Duty. I hate
zombies.
The online. I hate it all except for the zombies.
Zombies is good, right? We played Black Ops together.
Yeah.
So you barricade rooms and then they
break through the wood stuff, just like classic zombies. But you have to survive through all that stuff.
And they're not quick as well. They're quite slowish.
Yeah, they're quite slow, except they're quite hard to. I've found it very hard mode to get through. Because you've got all your weapon conservation, your ammo conservation, and they can start breaking through multiple places at once. It can get quite hectic and end quite quickly. So anyone that doesn't know, Call of Duty is a first-person shooter set in various different war zones. There's a single-player mode. There's a multiplayer mode. And then there's zombies, which came up in World at War, and then all of the Black Ops games that have been out, all by the same company, Treyarch. And yeah, they're set in different settings. There's one in like a sci-fi sort of space place, but the classic one that I mostly enjoyed was the one where you're in the house, which is I think the one we played.
Yes, Black Ops.
And yeah, this is just, Call of Duty games are bound to lose value because they keep releasing new ones all the time. So I'm sure you can pick them up quite cheap, and I think it's definitely worth a game if you want to play something multiplayer online with your friends, which is cooperative, unlike the rest of it, which is the rest of the game online is competitive. But Zombies is a cooperative game where you're surviving the zombies. It gets harder and harder every moment that you're going through. There's different waves that you have to get through, and it just gets harder and harder. And I personally have never completed a Zombies game. I've never got all the way to the end. I don't know if you have.
No.
No,
not that good.
Maybe wave 5 out. There's 10. Maybe we got halfway. I don't know. But definitely a worthwhile challenge. And the other one, the next thing is 2010, which I guess we'll leave to you then.
Oh, I forgot. I got one on my list. Is 2007.
Okay.
It's George A. Romero's penultimate film,
Oh,
Diary
yes.
of the Dead.
Diary of the Dead.
Diary of the Dead. Now, I tried to watch his final film, but I haven't been able to. It's not on any service. But I watched this one. This was going back to his independent days after Land of the Dead, which was fine. It's fine.
I wasn't that impressed with Land of the Dead. Yeah. So is it better than Diary? Is it better?
Yes. So for me, this is much better. This goes back to his roots. Small budget film. He's actually done it differently. So he's done it by found footage. So, what everyone was kind of going through. It shows you kind of like the outbreak at the very start, but then it follows this young group of film students who are making like a film in the woods about horror film. And then the zombie outbreak happens and they're trying to survive it. And he's taking that kind of like, okay, so his zombie outbreak happened in the 70s. What did they have to fight the zombies back then? Now, obviously, you've got mobile phones. So he's brought it into the modern day. After Land of the Dead almost kind of happened, but didn't happen in this scenario. And he's gone back to kind of like a low budget film. But what I liked about it was the actual special effects and the zombies were great again. I think he's gone back to, you know what, I don't need a studio to help me. Yeah. I'm going to go with smaller scope, I'm going to go low budget, and I'm going to fulfill and go back to what made these zombies great. And I think this is what, for me, is like sometimes go away, make whatever you want, but go back to your roots and make a film in that series and actually make it another good one. And I love this one. And even like critically, this is better than I think Land of the Zed. But it's a really good kind of like a small. Again, it gives you that claustrophobic, because this is the one where at the very end they're in a house again.
Okay.
And they've got a panic room, and the female survivor, I think it is, or the guy, they go into the panic room and they can see the screens. And this is. Yeah, so they can now finally, like you said before, we've had zombies and they're pounding on wooden doors and stuff, and this is actually, they're in a safe house, and the film ends there with them kind of surviving.
Trapped,
we don't know for how long, or trapped,
Awesome.
And but leading all the way through that is some really, really good bits and good elements that he does really, really well. Going back to 2 million budget, small budget film, found footage, zombies are great again. There's a lot of kind of atmospheric kind of danger going on in the film as well, which is cool. And because it's kind of it had that shaky cam trope that a lot of films were kind of taking at that point. Despite all of that, it's really good. It's definitely worth the watch.
Because I was put off for this movie. I haven't seen it yet because, one, Land of the Dead didn't impress me.
No.
It's okay, but it wasn't impressive. And two, the whole found footage thing was kind of overdone at the time as well. So both of those things have put me off. But now it sounds quite good. I need to go and see this film.
Also, I think he would have shot this in a short period of time because they're just using that single camera stuff. So a lot of this is kind of like him going back to what he was really good at, like what he would have done on a shoestring budget back in the day, and that's why I really liked it. Yeah,
is it scary as well? You got all that enclosed space.
Yeah, definitely some elements that jump scares and some really good scares in there. And again, because there's not tons of zombies now, because he's gone back to kind of like a really small kind of budget. So when you do see him, obviously the effects and the makeup and all of that looks great.
Excellent. Okay, so where are we at?
2009.
Okay, what we got?
So the only video game I want to talk about in 2009 is a game. Which one?
I have one nearer the time, so yeah, I think it might be the same one.
Might not be.
Might not be.
2009. Well, the game came out previously, but it was
Oh,
available on the iOS
right. Okay. No,
as
it's not my one.
an
It's a
app to
different one.
download. Mine is
Okay.
called Plants vs Zombies.
I was gonna write this in my honorable mentions. I forgot. I'm glad you mentioned it.
Plants vs Zombies is such a good game. Basically it's a tower defense game. You have 5 rows,
Mm,
and you have a lawnmower behind the thing. So if the zombies reach the end of your line, you have your lawnmower that will clear out that line. But if they then get through a second time, they've invaded your house, and that's the end of that.
yeah.
But the plants are there to protect your house. So you have the sunflower, which gives you more sunflowers. Then you have the weaponry ones as well. All these various different plants and things that you use to try
Mm,
and protect your house. One of the things I loved about this game was initially the levels all started off the same. It's daylight, nice and
okay.
easy.
All right.
So you have your sunflower, plus sun falls from the sky, so you can build more and more plants. Then you
Okay.
went into the night stage,
Oh
so you
wow.
have no more sunflower. You have to come up with a different way of making money and getting the sun for the
How do
rest of
you
your
how do
plants.
you fight back with
So
plants if you don't have any sun? How
so
does
in the next stage, you had different plants. So you have what you would almost have is you have your day plants, you'll have your night plants, you'll then have your rooftop plants, you'll have your plants when you're in protecting your swimming pool. So each as the game went progressed, you had different levels. The mini games were great. The puzzle games were good. There's ones where you kind of hit a vase and you don't know what's inside. It could be a zombie,
mm,
it could be a plant, and then you got to
okay.
smash them all, and then put your plants still protecting your house before the zombies get there. There's another level where you could play as a zombie trying to eat all the plants and trying to break into the house. There's loads of bits
Wow.
that they added on to Plants vs Zombies 1. I'm not talking about the sequel because the first one was a paid app, so you paid for it. There's no more.
Okay.
After that, you got loads of free updates, and you got loads. So there's no ad watching. There's no kind of like the time would run out, and you have to wait for
Right.
new lives and stuff. You can just play as much as you want, and that's what I loved
Okay.
about the game was you pay a price for an app, and that's it. You own the app. You don't
Is
have to
this
keep going back to it.
you say it started as an app, but can you also get it on
No,
consoles?
you can get it on the PC. It started off on the PC, the
Yeah.
tower defense game, and then I first was introduced to it when I saw it on the Apple iStore.
Because I have a PS3 game, I think, of Plants vs Zombies, but I don't know which one it is,
So
and
I've got
I haven't tried it yet.
so they did loads of variations. So now you've
Mm,
got Plants vs Zombies on the PS3, PS4, and in there it's like a third person shooter where
okay.
you play as one of the plants and you're shooting the
That's
various
that sounds
zombies
silly.
and stuff. And the zombies came in different kind of versions. So you have the basic zombie,
Mm.
the slow walking one. You then had a zombie that wore a hat, and if he had a hat, so in terms of a hat, he could wear a cone on his head, and if he had a cone, it'd take more hits to take him down.
Yeah.
Or you'd have one which had a metal bucket on his head,
Mm.
and then you had one zombie that was like a football playing zombie. So he was the only one that would come quicker. All the other
Mm.
zombies were slow paced. Then you had a
Okay.
zombie that would just would come and they would explode. You had zombies that there's a Saturday night one. So
Mm.
every time he started singing, multiple zombies would appear on different rows and all
Okay.
sorts of stuff. Yeah. So and as the levels go on, you had different levels and stuff.
Yeah. You
So
sold
it
it to
was
me. It
it's
sounds
a
like the
great game.
yeah.
If you've got it on the PC, if you've got the original Tower Defense version, that's the one I'd
That's the
highly
best one,
recommend.
isn't it? Yeah.
The third person shooter is great for people who love that kind of thing. I wasn't that much into it. I prefer the original.
Yeah. I mean, it's a strategy game. I think really it should stick with
Yeah,
that. And that's why I did want to mention it is that definitely a different take on the zombie mix, and it works as a casual game. I think I've heard people that are into it that aren't into other games, which I think is a good thing. And yeah, I've not played it myself. It's for me, it was just Plants versus Zombies Tower Defense. Didn't really interest me that much, but definitely for people that can enjoy it. Even I'm tempted now to give it a try.
Oh,
So
definitely. If you can get it on the PC or you can get it on PlayStation, and if it's the original, definitely get it.
I have to play the first one though. Yeah, sounds like the first one's the best. Sounds like it's got a good mix of everything, really.
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
Okay. So next one for me to mention is 2010. Do you know which one it is now? Probably do. As I was trying to guess which one yours was. 'Cause I'm sure I've mentioned this one to you before.
No.
2010 on the PlayStation 3, standalone DLC to another game.
Oh, yes, I know now.
Red Dead Redemption.
Red Dead
Undead
Redemption.
Nightmare.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, so this is the one that sort of triggered me to want to do this topic, because I remember at the time people were like, "Oh, the zombies have been done to death," and you were just saying how it was more of a revival time, but
Yes.
but I was getting a different feeling, and also maybe it was video games that were experiencing that more than movies. I don't know, but people were a bit like, "Oh, why are they bringing zombies into this Western game? How rubbish!" And I just remember thinking it was the absolute perfect setting for them because it had all those really old sort of spaghetti Western zombie movie things that we had a long time ago, almost like zombie roots, like the Italian film roots as well, and put into this Western world. So I thought it was a perfect use for zombies, me being a big fan of older zombie movies and stuff. And also, I just okay. So what the story goes is that Red Dead Redemption. The story is that you're playing John Marston. You're trying to get your family back by doing what the government have told you to do and take out your former colleagues. And later on, nearer the end of the game, without saying anything else, near the end of the game, you get your family back. You move into a house, so you got your wife back and you got your son back. And then right at the end, that's when Undead Nightmare is set. So you've gone through the whole game. You've got everything set up if you've played that long. And then zombie outbreak happens, and your wife and son have turned into zombies. And you're like,
cool.
what? Like after all that effort, your family are now zombies. So that's why John Marston is then setting out to find out what's going on and look for a cure. Yeah, he's the cure. And the thing that I love about this is that it does transform an entire map. Like I've said before about Grand Theft Auto 5 at Christmas, when everything gets covered in snow, the whole map transforms. I just love that the whole game world of the Western, where we've been going around on horseback and shooting wild animals and having shootouts and stuff. The whole thing transforms into a zombie apocalypse where zombies are everywhere. You've got different types, as we talked about, the exploding sort of zombies and all that sort of thing. Even the horses, you can capture different horses. In the main game, you can capture and tame any horse that you find. And in this one, you can capture and tame the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, which is great. We're actually the 4 horses of the apocalypse, and each one has their own separate power. So if you can find them and capture them, you've got one that if you run or gallop into or past zombies and brush into them, they'll set on fire because it's a fire oriented horse. And you've got one that I don't think I ever had, I'm not sure. One where if you brush up against the zombies, their heads explode. And I can't remember what the other 2 were. I think one of them was pretty useless, but they're amazing. Also, there's even a unicorn in there somewhere apparently, but I never got to see that. And yeah, in this one, the zombies are I think they're not infection based. They are spiritual based, but this time it's to do with, I think it's an ancient burial ground or something like that. It's been disturbed, that sort of thing. And so, but you find that out through the story, so I won't spoil the rest of it. If you want to go and play it, I think you could probably still play it on maybe PS Plus, but you'd have to check on that. I know you can play Red Dead Redemption on PlayStation Plus, which is
PlayStation Now.
PlayStation Now, sorry, yeah, the subscription service. That's right, yeah. So PlayStation 3 or PlayStation Now, sorry. The only annoying thing I found with the game though is that you can go around rescuing settlements and things like that, which is great fun. But the thing is, while you're trying to go, there's constantly attacks on settlements that you've already saved. So like where you could be across the other side of the map doing something else, and they never disable the fact that something else will come under attack. And then if you want to keep everything safe and good in the world, you have to then traipse all the way back to deal with that every time. So that's a small letdown for me. But apart from that, just like there's a green fog everywhere. It's complete transformation of the world, and I highly recommended as a use of zombies. Yeah. Anything else? You haven't played this one, I guess?
No, I haven't. No, I played the full game to the end, so it's interesting to see where the DLC fits because spoiler alert for the original.
It's just before that very end, yeah.
Okay, that's all right then. I won't spoil the ending of Red Dead just yet.
Everyone knows Red Dead Redemption's ending anyway. Especially now we've got Red Dead Redemption 2. Everyone has to know.
Oh yeah, of course, yeah, because that starts, I'm guessing, after the events of the first one.
Red Dead Redemption 2 is before the first one, so.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yeah, playing a different character. But we'll talk about that another time.
Yeah, we do Red Dead Day.
Okay, so other mentions, I've got 2012.
The film 2012? Nah, there was no zombies in that. That was a apocalypse film.
The year 2012. What's the next year?
No, that's it. That's the only things I put down. I ended in and started in year 2000 and ended by the end of 2009. That was my decade.
Okay, so have you got time to go into others, or shall we split this?
Yeah. Let's crack on. Yeah.
Okay. So, some more video game mentions. Is I know I lent you this one, so I don't know if you actually played it or not. In 2012. Do you know what it is already, or do you even forget me lending it to you?
Infamous 2? No, Lollipop Chainsaw.
That's it. You got it. Yes. Did you play this one?
Yeah, this is written by James Gunn, director of Guardians of the Galaxy. Yeah. Definitely. It's a fun. It's just a fun game, right? It's weird, but it's just fun.
It's fun. It's a mixture of violent zombie slaying and rainbow and sparkles, and it's an action. I don't know what you call it. It's an action fighting sort of game, a bit like Bayonetta and things like that, or the more modern
action.
Third person beat 'em up. And you play a cheerleader zombie hunter who with her boyfriend's head. That's spoilers for the introduction, but you end up with your boyfriend's living head attached to your belt or your skirt, whatever it is, to the back. And it's kind of rude and kind of funny, and it just really it kind of takes the mick out of all sorts of gaming stuff. I think it's also a bit of a reference to another series called Zombie Hunter, which was it was called Zombie Zone or Zombie Hunters, or it was actually a Japanese game called Oni-Chanbara, which is a similar sort of bash 'em up sort of game, but it was mostly known for one, having the protagonist in bikinis, girls in bikinis, and also to the amount of violence, and it was all oriented around sort of the bloodiness of your sword and things like that. And so an honourable mention for that is Oni-Chanbara Z2 Chaos, which I think is quite good as well, which is on PlayStation 4. But yeah, Lollipop Chainsaw, PlayStation 3. I recommend it as a good use of strange zombie stuff. It's very much tongue-in-cheek sort of comedy, light-hearted zombies though. It's not scary. And in that one, the zombies I think are coming over from the dark world or something like that. Is the story. There's two other worlds. There's basically a heaven type of thing and a hell type of thing, and there's a gap, and the people are getting zombified for that reason. It's a fun action game. Next thing I've got is 2012, and this one's actually a book because we don't bring up books very often.
No, because we don't read.
But it is a game book because I don't read that much. So
We
we've
don't
got
read and we don't listen to music. That's what you established at the start.
clearly. But yeah, Blood of the Zombies is a game book. If you like fighting fantasy game books, it was brought out for the 30th anniversary, maybe, of the fighting fantasy game books. So it's set in a modern setting. You've got a whole load of zombies. You end up trapped in a mansion. You're fighting your way out. There is a challenge for you to take out every single zombie in the entire book, which is a bit of a problem with the book because, in case you don't know, these are game books where you're rolling dice,
Yeah.
you're making decisions and moving about through different segments of the book, and then you're fighting by using dice. And there's two problems with this book, which I should mention, is that one, the combat is, well, one, to find all the zombies will take multiple playthroughs, which is a good thing in a way, but two, the system is very different to the other fighting fantasy game books, which actually makes it, I think it actually makes it impossible to defeat every single zombie and finish the book. So you need to tweak the rules slightly to actually beat the book. But apart from that, the writing is really good. I love the writing, the atmosphere of Ian Livingstone all the time, and the art in the book is really good as well. I wouldn't say it's scary at all, but it is very. It's definitely got the zombies down in the illustrations and some of the descriptions as well. So I'd recommend that as well as a book recommendation. Okay, so I'll only mention two more things, and I've finally come up to my movies because I've been mostly talking about video games, and we've talked about older movies. You've brought up some good movies actually that are better than Zombieland.
Yes.
And finally, we've come up to the two that I was really thinking of for this video. Was the sort of thing I was thinking of bringing up in the first place. So first one is 2013. And it's Warm Bodies. Can you tell me Warm Bodies? You know this one.
Yes. So it's more of a romantic teen genre kind of movie, but with zombies, where this girl falls in love with were they in love before he turned into a zombie? See, I've never seen this film, but I'm aware of it.
Okay, so so we were introduced first of all to a zombie. Okay, in a zombie apocalypse. This is a world in this part of the world at the moment where there's no humans left. They're just wandering around, kind of bored. But it's monologued by the zombie, and that's how we know that he's actually got a working brain. He's still actually quite, he's still got a brain going on in there. But he's just talking about how the zombie apocalypse happened. He just wanders around. He's got his best friend as well, who's a zombie. They just sort of hang out together and wander around. So they're zombies and they do eat brains, but they've got their own thing going on. And then everything changes when a group of people, humans still, come to explore the area. And we find out there's a settlement, I guess, that's still got humans in there, and they've got a military force and things like that. And one way or the other, this girl ends up trapped on the outside with the zombies, and this zombie character we've been introduced to, decides to help her and save her. Also, I think he likes her. He likes her, he fancies her, but he's a zombie, so all he can say is like, and obviously tries to eat brains. And it actually starts with him eating her boyfriend's brains as well.
Cool.
That starts up a bit of possible tension for later on. She doesn't see who it is that eats his brains at first, but her boyfriend's gone, and then he takes her to safety somewhere from the other zombies. But he doesn't want her to go out. One, because he doesn't want her to die, but two, because he doesn't want her to leave because he likes her. And then that's the basic setup. And then throughout the film, we see sort of it was the continuous relationship between them. She comes to realize she's scared at first because she thinks he's a zombie and he wants to eat her. But she realizes that he's harmless and that they're not all killers, which is what all the human settlement think. So we got two things. That eventually we got her trying to convince her dad, who's in the military, that the zombies might not be all bad. And two, we've got this story moving on where actually love can be a cure to these zombies, where his love for her is stopping him from eating.
Yeah.
And it's actually started to reveal that yeah, they are savable. But then you've got a classic zombie. Then you've got the faster zombies. So you've got different zombie types in this. And now there's a different level we get introduced later on to, which we find out are less savable, and they run about and they will even harm normal zombies, and they are the real things to fear, really. So yeah, I think this is a great twist basically on the zombie. I hope I haven't spoiled too much of it with the setup.
No, this is up on like it's been on Netflix. I've seen it up quite a lot. So you've kind of convinced me to watch this one. Because this was coming to the end of the zombie renaissance, in my opinion. So when this film came out, I think I was I've had enough zombies for now. But this was a fresh new take on it. But I never.
Yes, definitely.
I just thought, I don't know if I'm into this kind of thing, zombies.
Yeah.
So now that you mentioned it the way you have, I think I'll have to go back and watch this one.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I wasn't.
This could be the Predators of zombie films.
I didn't go out and chase this film. I did see it on TV one night when I was up late, and that's when I was sold. I've seen it on TV several times now. I've got it on DVD now. Like, I think it's a brilliant film. Brilliant mix, yeah. How do you mean by the Predators? What do you say?
Because, you hail Predators as the Citizen Kane of all science fiction films. You say it's the best one.
Don't get me started on the Predators. We haven't got an extra hour to spare.
Such a masterpiece. Okay. No, I'll definitely catch that one.
Okay. So the final one then for this lot, I guess, is the 2014 film, and we have talked about this film before, and I think we reviewed it many years ago, probably in 2015 or something. Just shows how long we've been going. Wow. And that's Life After Beth. Have you seen this, and do you remember it?
Life After Beth.
Life After Beth.
No, I haven't seen it.
I bet you remember it when I talk about it, because we have talked about it before. Okay, so this one, there's a boy, he loses his girlfriend, she dies.
Okay.
And
no, I haven't seen this one. This has got Audrey Plaza.
Yes, yeah. That's the one, yeah. No. So this is one that I talked about, that I went in to see not knowing what it was about, and I was thinking it was just a romantic thing about someone who lost a partner. So I thought it was just about tragedy, which is one of the reasons I found it so good, and maybe some people didn't find it as good. So just bear that in mind with the recommendation. But I just thought it was a great little film. The protagonist has lost his girlfriend straight away at the beginning of the film. He goes round to her parents a lot, because they're both got to share in their mourning of the loss of their daughter and his girlfriend. And I like that moving stuff anyway. But then they start to get a bit shifty about something, and they stop letting him come round. And he's like, "What's going on?" And I'm like, I know what's wrong. Please, like, I need this. Like, we need to mourn together. And why are you shutting me out suddenly? And that's when he finds out that she's possibly alive again, and like she's possibly still alive to his view, and that they're hiding her from him. And then by the time he gets in, eventually he finds out that actually she's a zombie. She says she's alive, but she's she's semi-operational. The whole sort of the idea of not being completely violent, but having some sort of reflection of humanity still.
Yeah, your memories and stuff that you previously did.
but she can't talk. She's just all "Arr," and all that sort of thing. I think. Oh, actually,
Yeah.
I think she might scream and talk. Actually, I need to rewatch this again soon because yeah, I think she does actually talk. I think in this as well. So yeah, a talking zombie. Yes, because she talks as if she doesn't remember dying, and people are just kind of like treating her like she's a zombie, like she shouldn't be there. And she's a zombie, and like a bit weird, and she doesn't know why because she thinks she's still alive. Um, and yeah, they sort of then try to have a normal relationship again, and sort of try to live their lives after that. And then after that, it starts to expand into a more worldwide sort of view of the fact that actually on TV, it's being on the news and stuff. You know, people are rising from the dead and that sort of thing. But it's more about how they deal with it and their relationship and whether they can actually have a zombie relationship because she is not exactly right and she does act a bit badly at times and starts wanting to eat brains and such. And I think the other thing that appeals to it for me as well, it has this question for me anyway. It brings up the question of when do you let someone go? This person has died. They need to let go of her and not hang on to her in zombie form because the person that they loved is lost and they are gone. And yeah, it's better to let them go. And I'll let you watch it to see how that pans out. And that's my recommendation. So, have we got time now to choose two of each?
Two of each. So two. You're going to choose two, and I choose two.
Yeah.
And then,
who wants to go first?
So
and then we'll choose one of our own that hasn't been picked, just so that we get our.
Okay, so we end up with 6 in total. Okay.
One of my picks. Two that you don't want to miss. Oh, two of mine. Yeah, sorry.
So one of my picks will be REC, I think, because
you got to pick mine out of my list.
Oh, from your list, Dawn of the Dead, 1978.
Okay, Dawn of the Dead, 1978. Got it. Yeah.
And then for a completely different kind of pick, I think Lollipop Chainsaw. I mean, it's just completely different, fun take on zombies.
Okay, that's cool. Excellent, thank you. For me, I will pick. I mean, this is hard because you've recommended 3 things that I'm really interested in now: Wreck, Diary of the Dead, and Dead Set. I'm really interested to see those. The thing is, I haven't seen them, so I don't know if I can really recommend them.
You can't recommend them then, yeah?
It's a shame. So I'm going to have to recommend... It's going to have to be Night of the Living Dead, the original, the one and only. And...
watch it in colour.
Watch it in black and white. Don't watch it in recolour. That's stupid. And even though it was only an honourable mention for me, I'm going to recommend Shaun of the Dead because it's...
Oh, yes.
I'm interested in Plants vs Zombies, but I haven't played it. So those are all things that I might recommend once I've seen them.
Yeah. So when we come back to do our, because zombie genre is never going to go away. There'll always be stuff like The Walking Dead's been going on for so long.
We can watch the ones that vice versa that we haven't seen.
Yeah, I definitely want to watch Warm Bodies now. Now that you've said that. Yeah.
Follow-up episode. Do you want to save one of yours that I haven't voted for? Which one would you
I think if someone's going to say you can only watch one zombie a film outside of, you've already got Night of the Living Dead in there, then I would say from my list, the one I'd highly recommend, 28 Days Later.
28 Days Later, yeah.
Because that for me personally is the game changer, because zombies weren't that predominantly seen as commercially viable, and they're kind of dying down especially in cinema. So this really revitalized the whole genre. So excellent. I think for me, 28 Days Later. So the others are all good, but that's the one.
That's the one. Yeah, that's the one that I'm hesitant to recommend, just because I need to rewatch it and see if I love it still or not. But yeah, I respect your choice on that one. And I think for my choice, I've got so much to choose from, but I'm leaning towards having to choose the Thriller video, Michael Jackson's Thriller, because it's such a good sum up of zombie stuff, and if you haven't seen it, it's only 14 minutes long. You have to see it. It's a must watch, I think.
And it's not just a music video in the traditional sense. This was
No.
it was a film.
It's a
Basically.
little mini short film. I mean, it is very much, although it's very much based around the whole theme of thriller. It uses thriller as that is kind of the story at the same time. But it's got a couple of little parts, different bits to it that just make it a solid little film. Yeah. So that's what I'm going for. Okay, so I don't know what we're going to do about battling these out for the top 6, or we should just recommend them all.
I think we just leave them as recommendations.
Okay, so let's go through the list once more in release order. So we've got Night of the Living Dead.
Yes.
We've got Dawn of the Dead. We've got Thriller, the short video music video by Michael Jackson. What year was that one? What year was? Then we've got 28 Days Later.
2002's, yeah.
2002. Shaun of the Dead, 2004.
Yeah.
And finally, Lollipop Chainsaw on the PlayStation 3. And I can't find the year for that. I've forgotten it already. So, 2012. So it's finally on the list. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So thanks very much for that. So these are the ones we recommend that you go and see. Please let us know what you think of the movies.
Yeah. Or if you play Plants vs Zombies, tell us what you think.
Yeah. Also, I think you should also watch all the ones that we haven't watched, either of us as well, because I'm definitely going to go away and look into things like Dead Set and Wreck, because I'm definitely interested in those things. And
Diary of the Dead.
And Diary of the Dead. I've got them all ready now. I'm going to go watch them straight away.
Brilliant. So, should we crack on to the segments?
We can if we've got time to do that today.
Yeah.
Let's do it today. We don't even need to have a break today.
No break. We'll just power through.
Okay, segment.
You got to start. You got your jingle ready?
Did you do it? In that case, oh my gosh, you watched South Park.
Yes. Yes, I did. So as we've been going through, normally watch 2 episodes. This was the season finale, so I just watched the one. Okay. And then give it a breather, and then when we're back for the next episode, talk about the first 2 episodes of the following season.
Yeah, I think you should have watched the next one as well, but carry on.
No, because it builds up more suspense to what's going to happen.
Okay, you're thinking that way. Okay. Yeah.
Yes. So I'm not going to tell you
we talked about it last week. What happens for you?
Yeah. Do you remember what we talked about? What is the story of this one?
Wait. Unless I'm confused, I might have actually forgotten already. I might have shifted about the series again. But was it? Yeah, I might have got it wrong again. Is it the who is Cartman's dad?
Yes, it is. That's the episode. Yeah. Yes.
Oh,
so he's outside playing with his dolls, and he's doing his tea party thing, and he's a little bit down. And the episode is about because he doesn't know his identity and who his real dad is.
Yeah, in case you don't know, Cartman's mum is a single mum by this point.
Yes. So while all of his friends like Stan, Kyle, even Kenny, they've all got kind of 2-parent households, and he's come from a single. So this is something that he never knew about, and this is where we explore that in this episode.
Something I can relate to. Yeah.
And another great episode.
Yeah, great episode. And they're constantly going through who it could be, and it keeps on going. Who could Cartman's dad be? And it includes. I remember it. The main thing I remember is it includes the Broncos or something like.
Yes, it does. Yeah.
The entire American football team.
Yeah, the entire team.
The entire team, which is just hilarious.
It could have been Mr. Garrison.
Could be Mr. Garrison, okay.
It could have been Chef.
Chef, yeah, definitely.
It could have been the Native American.
Yeah, and I think they go through the episode. He goes around talking to each of those, and then they lead onto the next person.
Yeah, so the story unravels. And she can't remember anything of that night.
Yeah, because it's about a barn dance night, isn't it? And,
yes, it is. Yeah.
So they can't remember who slept with her, and like, oh no, it wasn't. Then they're like, oh no, it wasn't me, and then it moves on to the next person.
And they needed $3,000 so the mad scientist can do the DNA test.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And so
Chef Aid comes in, or is that another thing?
No, so Chef Aid is later, and that's a hilarious episode. But this one, so he needs $3,000. They shoot the video of him
Okay.
and Kyle and Stan give it to America's Funniest Videos, something like that. And in
Oh
there,
yeah.
if they win, they get $10,000. So that would
Oh
be their
yeah.
winning prize. So it goes and it gets to the final, and
But
then they
then
show you the 3 clips that get put up. So the first one is, I can't remember the first. I think it's like a cat doing something. There's Cartman's, and then the third one is one where, which is the one where Kenny dies,
okay. Kenny dies. Okay.
and it's the grandpa who videotaped it, and he wins the 10K.
He
It's
wins.
hilarious.
I remember that bit, but I didn't remember what the video was. Yeah.
So he wins the 10,000. They get a consolation prize of 3,000, so they can still do the
Yay.
DNA experiment.
That's
And
okay
then
then.
the episode ends at that cliffhanger.
And we don't know who it is.
No, we don't. So
Oh,
we will end this
classic.
episode on that cliffhanger.
A season cliffhanger as well. You had to
Yeah.
wait for months.
Yeah, this is back in the day when things didn't come out that quickly. There's no internet, so there's no kind of real, I guess like 13, 15 years ago, whatever it was when it first came out.
Back in the day, I'm still in this situation with blooming what's it called? Disenchanted. Just every time they just keep on wait. You have to wait for ages to see the rest of the story.
Well, I thought the whole thing's on Netflix right now, but it's
but they've already ended the season. Like,
oh yeah.
oh yeah, that'll be mini reviews in a moment. So yeah, I've watched it now.
Okay, I haven't got round to that. I'm just going back through season 1, and then I'll make my way to season 2, just so I'm up to speed with what happened.
So yeah, are we racing this one?
Yeah. So what do you think? If you remember the episode, what's your rating?
4 stars for the. I mean, it's iconic episode.
Oh yeah,
theme, and yeah, great setup for the next season that we're looking forward to.
Yeah, and I think what's good is because there's not massive pop culture references. It's more about the characters who we've already seen and established, and it's about a child trying to find his identity. There's a bit more to it, but it's still funny. It's still fresh. It still holds up because sometimes things date so quickly, and I think this is one episode that does not at all. Yeah, it's still very, very funny, and I love the cliffhanger ending.
If anything, all the stuff in this and the next episode are actually more relevant now today because I mean you see cliffhanger stuff like this even more now. So
yeah,
that main reference to things that media like to do and TV series is still a thing. It's constantly done in soaps and stuff. So yeah.
Yeah, 4 star, and that's the end of the season as well.
Yeah, we're going to rate the season.
Yeah, so season 1 as a whole.
4 stars. I love the first season the best.
It is. It's incredible. I think it's really, really funny throughout. That there may seem like odd episodes or odd bits that you may not enjoy, but I think it's as a whole, it's incredible. And the animation style is still good. Like except for there's intention to go very cheap and make it look a certain way, and I think it still holds up. I loved it.
Excellent. Thank you for bringing us for season 1.
Yeah, and now on to the next segment.
Okay, which one's that? Mini reviews?
Yeah, mini reviews.
I like quick reviews. Okay.
Quick reviews.
You got anything to talk about?
I've been playing a lot of Neo. PlayStation Plus dropped 2 games as they do every month. Neo is one of those games. People refer to it as kind of a Dark Souls, Bloodborne esque type game.
Yeah.
And it feels very much like that in that you start off and there's a map, no instructions on what you need to do or where you need to go. You kind of left by yourselves to wander around the place and attack enemies that appear in the same sort of place. And then, you pick up these, I can't remember what they're called, but basically, like souls in Dark Souls and in Bloodborne Blood.
Just talk it in Dark Souls.
The game currency. And then when you get enough game currency, you can start leveling up. There's lots of different things you can level up, like your skills, your dexterity, strength, all sorts of stuff. There's a lot of complex things about all of that, and I don't fully understand it, so I just chuck level up on anything. I don't know if I'm going right or wrong.
Okay.
But what I have found is the actual people you fight against, as in the little the main not the bosses yet, just the main characters that are floating
Yeah.
around. Some of them are quite difficult to kill anyway.
Okay.
But the more times you use your weapon, the weapon gets better, and you can kind of upgrade the weapon, so then the next time it'll become stronger, and then it's easier to kill the next person with.
Yeah.
The one cool thing about this game that I think Bloodborne and Souls don't have is you have this point where, which with Bloodborne, when you get to a certain point, you'll see a little tombstone. You click on the tombstone, and it'll show you a person and how they died, the last few seconds of their life.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So not to do something, or
Yeah.
there's a person behind a corridor.
Yeah.
And also people leave notes everywhere in
Yeah.
Bloodborne.
Online, yeah.
So it helps, and that's how the community kind of can talk to each other. But also, if you read someone's note in Bloodborne and you vote it, they get a bit of health back while they're playing the game.
Oh wow.
So
Okay.
that's all cool in Bloodborne. So this doesn't have that, but when someone dies, it'll have their sword in the ground,
Okay.
and you click on, or you view it first, and it'll say this person got cut down by or drowned or whatever. You can revive that person, and then you then have to kill them, or they kill you.
Okay.
But the good thing about that is there's a chance that whatever armor or weaponry they were holding at that point, if you kill them, they will drop, and you can have that new weapon or new
Oh
armor.
wow.
So
Okay.
actually killing those
That's
characters
interesting.
is quite good. But in certain areas, they will be really highly leveled.
Yeah.
So if you're starting off, I started off and you're like level whatever. The first one I saw was a level 12.
Yeah.
So if you attack that, he kills you straight away but you
Yeah.
have to learn how to kind of like dodge and kind of when to block and stuff like that. And then you can kill him. And then you pick up some cool gear doing that. So
Yeah.
there's an extra part to the game. You kill the normal.
That's an extra bit of replayability and sort of dynamicness.
Yeah,
to
and
it.
each level will have different people who died there.
Yeah.
So if you get to the next level, you'll come up with different people at different parts of the game. So
Yeah.
one point there could be 3 or 4 people because there's an enemy there who's that strong, killed 3 or 4 people quite recently.
Yeah.
And then you'll go through the level where you won't see many for ages, and then you'll see another cluster, or you see some scattered around, and you don't have to invoke them. You can walk past them.
Yeah.
It's fine. The problem I have with this is I find that the bosses so far have been too overpowered for myself. Maybe I've chosen the wrong characteristics for the character. It takes me ages to kill a boss, multiple tries, and it can get frustrating because.
Well, that's how I feel about all the Souls and Blood games. So
yeah, and I think that's. But you can call people to help you. So I've asked and I've rang the little bell or whatever it is, and I've summoned people, and I came up to one boss, and I must have summoned at least 10 people to help.
Wow.
One out the other, and they would die, I would die, they would die. It took maybe 15 attempts to kill the first major boss in the game. Wow. So it is a bit demoralizing where it's that difficult. But then it opens up more of the world, and therefore, and you can play more bits to it. But yeah,
because with Bloodborne, I don't think I ever called on anyone to help, and in that respect, like it was as much as I might have found a piece particularly. I was just looking around the level, I couldn't find the right thing for some reason. I think it was, but at least I had that option there that I never used. If you've called out all your options and you've got help from players and you still can't get through that, I can't imagine wanting to play it anymore.
No, it is a really difficult game, more so than Bloodborne. But once you've done a level, once you completed it, it comes out of that level and shows you the world map. And so you have this kind of respite where you can then pick your next mission or submission.
Yeah.
But with Bloodborne, it's almost like one big, at least the first part. So you had Yharnam, you had the cathedral, you had Forbidden Forest, you had the bits that came off that. There's all one massive map.
Yeah.
Where once you opened up a shortcut, you could run from one end to the other end if you wanted to.
Yeah.
Here you've completed that map bit, and then you can come back out, and then you can see other parts of it. Some of the maps have gone into tons of little corridors, and I can get lost, and I don't know where I am. I get disorientated quite easily. But with Bloodborne, I found maybe because I play that more and more,
Maybe.
I knew all the areas well enough that I could walk in and
But
out. I knew where the shortcuts were.
also with Bloodborne and Dark Souls, from what I've seen, they've actually been very clever with the way they set things up, so that you will see different parts of the level from the beginning, so that
Yeah, you can see it from far as well. Yeah.
so you can piece together the whole area in your mind. So maybe the Neo hasn't really done that as well. So therefore, you don't really know what you're doing.
Yeah, with Bloodborne, in certain parts, you could stand and look to the left or to the right, and there's this big kind of mountain or hill in the
Yeah,
background, and that's kind of the end point that you need to get to, and
yeah.
you see the ladder that leads there.
Even before you know it, you could see something in the distance, and that would turn out to be your destination. And you wouldn't even know it till you got there, and you'd be like, "Oh wow, look, I'm here." And you can look back and you can see the beginning area, which was a big selling point. Actually, it was good.
And I think the problem with this one is because I've come from playing Bloodborne where you hit and I press the dodge button to move out the way. Here it doesn't quite work. Like they want you to block, so I'm not used to doing that. I've come from a game which doesn't have a block mechanic.
Maybe that would be better for me.
I think so. There's no shield like in Dark Souls, but there is a block. So you put your weapon up and you put yourself, and you take a small hit basically.
Yeah, well, that's good to have a bit more variety, because obviously Dark Souls and Bloodborne had some slight variations as well. So, I mean, I've heard it being called almost like the poor man's version of Dark Souls, maybe because it's slightly lower budget. I don't know, but I don't know whether I'll give it a try or not. Really, I've got it ready.
Yeah,
if I want to try it.
I think it's one that it's worth playing the first, not the once you get out the tower, the very first kind of trial area. It's worth playing the first area through. Now, if you get really stuck in the first area, then I'd say don't even bother with it, because that's the easiest part. But if you get to the first boss battle and you find the first boss battle relatively easy play on, if you find it really difficult, I'd say give up, because the first one is the easier of all the bosses.
That's a good tip. Yeah, it's free anyway on PS Plus for the time being.
Yeah.
So yeah, play the first level. That's what I was saying.
Yeah, because I think the tower bit, the very first bit, what you find is when they kind of do the introduction gaming, well, they'll say, okay, go to the end. The very first boss you fight there is so easy to kill, but actually killing some of the guards that led up to killing the boss, they were more difficult to kill, the guards.
Okay.
But actually killing the boss at the very end battle was very easy. So you think the game's going to be super easy thereafter, but it's not. It takes it's a steep learning curve after that. Yeah.
I mean, that's a different setup, isn't it? Because like, I think most games like to give you a hand on the fight on a boss on an area. So because if you die too much at the boss, it kind of lets you down and disappoints you. If you kind of like, a lot of games have it set up so that there's a challenge all the way through, but the challenge is kind of an illusion at the last point, because they want to have you satisfied at the end.
Yeah, that you can win.
Yeah, and I think in some ways that's a good idea.
I think the problem with this as well is there's too many. See, Bloodborne had a finite amount of weapons, and that was it. And you could finish the game with the starting weapons. You could kill everything all the way to the end, kill the boss. In here, you have your starting weapons, and you just keep picking up lots and lots of more weapons and armor. And if you're not really deep into the game, it can get a bit confusing, because there's so many different swords. You'll have so many different axes. You'll have different spears. And once you pick up a spear and you like it, before you know it, you picked up another one. So you have to always manage your inventory as well. Yeah. So it's a deep game for people who like that sort of element of it. But for the casual player, this is not their type of game.
I think that's going to appeal more to me than the other games then, because I prefer that sort of deep, looking at all the different details of stuff and things like that. I find that as an interesting element, good element. So yeah, I might have to give it a try.
Cool. I've also finished watching a TV show called Catastrophe.
Okay.
Which had Princess Leia. Late. She was in there. It's only about 4-5 seasons long. I think it's 4 seasons. British comedies tend to be about 6 episodes long. They're not that long, 6 or 8 episodes. We don't really like. So you can whiz through them quite quickly because they're about 20 minutes. So you can watch an episode a day. Within a couple of weeks, the whole season's finished. It's actually really good. Season 1 is the best in Catastrophe. Some of the seasons are good. Some of the episodes, there'll be standout episodes in that season, but number 1 is the best. And yeah, it's just genuinely, it's like,
what is it?
It's about a couple who get together when he's on a business trip in the UK, and then off of that, she becomes pregnant.
Right.
She keeps and then he has to make the choice of coming back to be an active father, be part of that life, giving up everything in the US, starting a life in the UK.
Okay.
For which he does. Spoiler alert. And it's all the knock-on effects it has off of that. So they didn't know each other. They don't know anything about each because they just met. They had this few nights that they had together, and that was it. And so it's kind of building a relationship from scratch.
Yeah.
But actually seeing a relationship with a lot of kind of flaws and cracks in the relationship, which is quite good because normally it's all the
realistic.
It's all the happy stuff. They get together and then it's finished. This is kind of like there wasn't happy stuff. They met by accident. Something happened, and then you're trying to put these two different pieces together who never really gel together.
And
but it's good.
Put the work in. They have to put the work in, which sounds good. Yeah.
And the leads are really, really good, and they're really funny.
But did you say the knock-on effects or the knocked-up effects?
Oh, good man. I like that. Both.
Yeah, good.
That's a good one.
Thank you very much.
It's really, really worth watching. It's on Amazon Prime.
I didn't have Prime.
It used to be. It might be on all 4 because it used to be on Channel 4.
Okay.
So it might be on there as well for anyone who's watches that.
Okay.
And the other thing I just finished watching is The Toys That Made Us, the documentary series on Netflix. In the new 4 episodes, they cover WWE, they cover Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, My Little Pony, and what was the other one? And there was another one that they did because the Toys That Made Us, they've already had.
Okay.
How many seasons? They've had 2 seasons previously in which they've done stuff like Transformers. They've done Star Wars.
Yeah.
They've done.
I remember you talking about the series before. Yeah.
Oh, Power Rangers was this episode as well.
Okay.
Power Rangers. If there's one episode you watch the Power Rangers one.
Is it actually about the toys then?
Yes, it's about how they came up with the idea of the toy, how they marketed the toy, how they actually bring the toys to life, and how much sales they had and where it dips down, what they did to revitalize that franchise. So if you watch like the Power Rangers, they'll go about how they actually created Power Rangers from just won't give too much away, but where it came from, the idea, and who bought the license in. Yeah. Same with the wrestling, like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles started off as a comic book before it became the cartoon, before it became the merchandising machine that it is now.
Yeah, I love that stuff. Yeah.
Star Wars is pretty straightforward. The Barbie one was really fascinating as well.
Okay.
That's episode kind of that was in the first season. He-Man's another good one because, again, that's a huge toy that kind of came out from kind of nowhere. Because also He-Man characters are larger than the standard characters, the toy characters.
Yeah.
G.I. Joe was fine. Star Trek was good. Transformers, another good one. Lego. I've seen quite a few documentaries on Lego, so I like Lego. And then there's a Hello Kitty one, which I haven't seen because I don't like Hello Kitty.
But you might like the story. Once
I know, I might do. Because
you'll fully love it.
I love the way they do these documentaries. If you've seen any episodes, it's really funny. It's really fun. And they go through a lot of detail on how this whole thing came about. So, if you love Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Power Rangers, My Little Pony, or aware of any of them,
I like the origin stories and stuff like that.
Yeah,
there's nostalgia of seeing all that stuff as well. Sounds great.
It's brilliant. They're also releasing the films that made us. So they're going to release 4 films that they'll do a documentary of, and that's coming to Netflix in the next week or 2 as well.
Okay.
That includes Ghostbusters, Home Alone, Dirty Dancing, and there was another film I can't remember. But I'm definitely watching that as well.
Okay, that's one to look out for. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so anything else? I've been watching I watched the rest of Disenchantment.
Yep.
Um, so it's basically a Fantasyland version of Futurama, but not as funny. The series at the end of last season, the main protagonist chose to revive her mother and leave her elf friend to die.
Oh yes, that's right. Yes, yeah, I've
Uh,
not got. I'm still working my way through it, and now I remember the ending.
okay,
Yes.
good. I thought I was afraid I'd spoilt it for you then. Um, so you remember that point. So
Yes.
from the beginning, I don't know how much you want to know then, really.
Just give a overview of the series as
Well,
to what you
you
think of it without spoiling it.
well, you know what? The first episode, you're gonna know what it's about as soon as you see it. So I'm gonna let you know about that straight away. Is that she then? Yeah, I think so. She then tries to save Elfo, tries to get him back. Um, it wasn't that funny. As things go on, I think the comedy returns a bit. You got more of the classic sort of little jokes everywhere,
Yeah.
and also you finally have the elves have moved into the main city eventually. So there's extra comedy element because you've got a little area where elves live as well, which I think was needed. But the story it has a lot of individual little stories I think it needs to get on with the actual story, because by the time it gets to the end of the season, nothing much has happened. And I'm like, well, you've still got big open questions, and all they've done is tease about it throughout the thing, but then there's no finale. It's just like one giant tease.
Yeah, I think because he signed up for a 3 or 4 season deal, so I
Yeah,
think that's why it's a lot of padding.
a lot of padding. I as much as I absolutely appreciate having individual stories that aren't tied to the main thing, but the fact that they tease it, but then nothing really, you don't get to see anything in this season. It just suddenly came to an end. I'm like, I've just watched all that for nothing. Come on, give me something more. So I now have to wait for another season, and probably a season after that, just to get the actual story that they've got going on in the background. So you're just left with like the jingles rather than the actual meat of the story. So that's my downside of Disenchantment at the moment. Still, is it worth a watch? I'd actually say just wait till the next season comes out. Wait
And then
until
watch
you
it
know
together.
there's a conclusion. When you
Yeah,
know there's a
yeah.
conclusion, then you can binge it properly and watch the whole lot. But at the moment, binging that was like binging an episode. It's like having one episode. Like, give me some conclusion. So yeah, that's my opinion on that one. Um, what else have I done? I've also played. I talked about having VR recently for
Yes, yeah.
PSVR, and I gave Resident Evil 7 a go, which I don't think
Oh,
I
brilliant.
mentioned. I did. I played it for about 6 hours, and I didn't play it again after that, just because I couldn't be bothered to plug it all in, and that sort of game as well is quite intense. But it's really good use of the PSVR. I was having tracking issues with other things before I tried it, but but I was really just building up to it, and I made sure the thing was calibrated as much as it could be, and it just worked perfectly once I was actually in it. And you just get to move your head around; it perfectly follows, and you can just look around. Um, and I think it's really one of the best. Well, it's one of the only full games that I've played so far, but I think it's a great use for it because Resident Evil 7 is all about getting back to a smaller scale, set in a house, things close and jump scary, and
Yeah.
it's absolutely perfectly fits. I think having a headset and having things actually jump right up in front of you, having people's faces coming right at you, and the story itself is it's quite scary. You're starting off as I think there's a camera crew that have gone to this house, and your girlfriend's been included or something, but they've disappeared. They've not come back, and now you're heading into the house. You've found out where her last location is, and you're going to find her. And it was really strange actually walking up to the gates of this house for the first time in VR, because I did a drawing or a coloured drawing of that exact scene from the trailer before the game was even out several years ago, And it was so strange for me just walking up to those gates and looking around in full VR, just lifting my head around. It's quite surreal. Yeah, it's definitely a recommendation for that one. If you've got the PSVR and if you've got the Resident Evil 7 VR stuff. And yeah, if it's affordable to you, I wouldn't say waste too much money on it though. It is. The thing is also, I think PlayStation, they reckon that VR is going to be working with the PS5 as well. So, and
cool.
they're going to be. Some are saying that it's going to be that you'll be able to play discs from other consoles. Before that was rumors, but it's becoming more true as we go on.
Yeah, because they applied for a patent, didn't they, for that ages ago? As part of this.
So it looks like the VR should still have a longer life into the PS5, but as it is, it's still kind of, a lot of the stuff is still gimmicky and not very good, with only a few sort of major games that are really on board, like Resident Evil 7, Skyrim. I mean, you can do Borderlands 2 in VR, which is interesting, but I don't see Borderlands 3 in VR yet. But it looks like it's got some support, but it needs more, I think. So we just have to hope and wait and see that actually that it builds up and continues to get support, because otherwise it's kind of a waste of money otherwise. So yeah. Excuse me. And the other game I played that I've been playing this week is called Odin Sphere Life Thrasir. I don't know if you've heard of this one at all.
No.
Basically, you know how I was going on about playing Dragon's Crown for a long time?
Yeah, oh my god. I feel like you're still talking about that game.
Okay, so this is from the same studio as that. It's actually a sequel to I think it's a Dreamcast game or a Saturn game called Princess Crown, which was only in Japanese. So Dragon's Crown was kind of part attached to that world as well, hence Princess Crown, but this is even more so. And it's more a RPG and with sort of an action RPG. Again, it's like Dragon's Crown. It's beautifully painted, hand painted, 2D with several layers. There's up to like 11 layers. So you know how like the layers move at different levels, different speeds to show like the 3D-ness of it. But yeah, this is more based on the story though. It's got a great story so far. I've played through 2 of the main stories already. I think they're of 5 or maybe 6. Odin Sphere, you start off playing as a Valkyrie, who's the daughter of Odin, King Odin from like myth.
Thor.
Yeah, all that stuff.
Thor's that.
So there's no Thor in it yet that I've seen. But it's all sort of based around the sort of it's based in that world. All the stories seem to be based in the world, but the same sort of thing has gone on. But the stories are also so specific though, and like although they cross over, you're getting an idea of how they all cross over, but they're all very much individual personal stories of love and such as that. So it's got nice personal stories and their conflicts with their parents and things like that. Like Dragon's Crown, I think a lot of their games, there seems to be an obsession with actual food and eating as well, which is always quite interesting. Something you don't get in a lot of games, where you actually have to sit down. You don't have to, but in order to get your life up and your experience up, you can prepare your own food, or you can go and have food prepared, and it's got a very sort of anime or cute aspect to it as well, while also being fantasy based. And yeah, I'm sure I'll find a better way to sell this game, because I think it is a really good game.
Yeah,
it's a lot more story led than Dragon's Crown, which was more a central basic hero's story. This one is more nuanced, which I think is a very strong selling point for this. It's actually a remake of Odin Sphere, which was on the PlayStation 2, but it's a really good remake where they've just tweaked everything. They've added things to it. The graphics are a lot better looking, and yeah, it's one of the standouts for remakes. Whereas it's not just a basic remake; it's actually, I think, probably better than the original. Yeah.
Sounds quite good. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not sold. I shouldn't have mentioned Dragon's Crown. I thought.
I know. As soon as you mentioned that, I'm on my back. Thought I'm not
Yeah.
listening.
It's
I
not
can't
really
do that.
related to it. Like, it's not really related to it in any way. It's like
It's
complete.
like
But
it's like if
it's,
Bloodborne 2 came out and I was talking about it, you'd hate it. Like, this game's rubbish.
by the way, it's not even a 2.5D brawler anymore. It's a side-on scrolling fighter, and the way that the levels works is unique as well. It's all just got so much uniqueness to it that I think it's worth a look actually. But yeah, this time it's just more like a plain 2D side-on, so you can't walk up and down in the levels as well. You can jump around more so, and more like a Street Fighter, but with multiple enemies, which originally put me off a bit. But it's more about the massive level with extra opponents rather than just one-on-one. So it's good. Yeah, I've definitely seen its praises. I got it while it's on discount. It's a bit expensive on PS4. I waited until I saw it for a decent price on PS4. So depending on where you are financially, I would recommend doing the same personally.
I think the sales are on right now for that, aren't they? Because
Yeah,
Black Friday
it might still
sales
be there.
so it might be on sale now.
Slightly cheaper on PS Vita as well, but I wanted it on the PlayStation 4 because the graphics are such high quality that you want to see it in as high definition as possible. So yeah, that's about all I've done at the moment. I finished Gao Gun rather. Got all the trophies. There's still about 4 medals for characters for finding them in particular places, but I didn't get that for the trophies. That was a bit frustrating that I just can't find them. So I think I'm ready to move on from that series. I've got all 3 platinum trophies for all 3 PlayStation games, even the one in pure Japanese. So I'm satisfied.
Yeah.
Moving on.
Next segment.
Okay, my guy previews.
Yeah.
Have we got anything?
For me, it's The Irishman. So Netflix bought a film from Martin Scorsese, which is his most expensive film ever made. It's called The Irishman, starring Robert De Niro, Al Pacino, Ray Romano's in it, Joe Pesci. The star cast is incredible.
Star cast. Yeah.
And it's for anyone who's got Netflix and still going to keep the Netflix subscription for now, because there's a lot of streaming services, and I know this is one that's going to be a lot of people will be looking to dump. This is
over Disney Plus or something.
I mean Disney Plus is only $6.99. This could cost you like $12.99 if you want the 4K experience. Amazon Prime is £80 for a whole year. Then there's a lot of other TV streaming services, but a lot cheaper. That's the whole thing. They're a lot cheaper than Amazon, Netflix, and Netflix are losing a lot of content, so they have to churn out their own. So they've obviously purchased this film, which is about 3 hours and a bit long. Got Harvey Keitel as well, so I'm definitely going to be watching this one. I love things that Martin Scorsese has done. He's brought back De Niro in this. He's brought back Al Pacino. Joe Pesci's in it as well. So I'm looking forward to this one.
Okay, yeah. I'm interested as well. We'll find out about that one. I've got another review actually. If we want to do another review,
you could do it spoiler free because I need to watch that film.
You haven't seen it yet. You know what I'm talking about then? What am I talking about?
You're going to be talking about some snow.
Snow. Okay, you haven't seen it yet. We'll talk about it when you've seen it.
Oh, brilliant.
Because I don't want to spoil it even with my opinion. So I want to see your opinion first.
Yes, because
I'm right.
It's it's one where I only watched the teaser trailer for, and I haven't seen any of the material because I remember when the first one came out, I didn't even watch the trailers for because I just thought, oh, what is this? I'm not gonna watch it. But then
Frozen instead.
And then once it came out and it was like this, people were talking about how good it is, this film. So I went in without watching any promo, and I enjoyed it that way because I didn't know what I was expecting. And I think I've done something similar with this one. There's a few films that I've gone in, like Terminator. We talked about the other week, where I avoided any kind of promo material after the initial teaser.
Yeah.
and a lot of the promo stuff then started giving away things in the film,
Yeah,
which kind of
it's a good idea to
spoils.
avoid then. Yeah.
And I did that with Wreck-It Ralph. All Pixar films, because I love Pixar. I'm going to watch it anyway, so I don't need to see a trailer. You just you could put your name on anything. I'll watch it. Disney animated studios films I tend to watch as well. So that there are some films that I'd watch regardless, and like the Avengers stuff I'd watch. So this is one I haven't seen anything of, and I'm gonna
What are your
just go
hopes
straight.
for it? And I'll talk about my hopes.
That's the thing. It's like the first one I went in without having anything, and the fact that it had songs, and initially when I first listened to the songs, I'm like, they're okay. I don't get it. What's the big deal?
Yeah.
But then I watched it. I've seen it since then, maybe 5-6 times.
Yeah.
And the songs are really endearing to me now. They've grown on me so much. Like Lion King, I think The Circle of Life. I think all those songs were almost. I'd heard them a few times before I went to the film, and so when I saw them, I loved the film. To me, and then even like I watched Aladdin years later, Mulan, but those songs were quite iconic, and they were good. And so with this, I have no idea, and I have no clue. And even with when Moana, I quite liked some of the songs, like the Thank You song, You're Welcome, the one with Dwayne The Rock Johnson does. So I don't know, as long as there's at least one fun song, because Olaf has he has a fun song in that, then I'll be happy with that.
Okay. Well,
my expectation is one fun song.
That's all you need.
And it's a darker trailer, so I guess it's a darker film. What everyone else is
I
saying.
didn't even see a trailer, but my expectations were way high. I'll just talk about it from that perspective before I saw the film. Is that my expectations were high, but I also know what Disney is capable of and capable of doing badly and good. So I think the first film I saw after Christmas that it came out. I just went in because it was on and I was like, oh, I'll go watch this film, and I think it is one of the best films from Disney. Like, I know you've got a lot of classics as well that you could call the best, but this film, the first one, it took about 10 years in the making to get to the point where it was so perfect, and it rings so true for people of certain lifetimes, or even for people that know other people. It's got such a human story to it while also being fantastic as well. And it started out, I think it originally started off as the Snow Queen, started from the story of the Snow Queen. So to change it dramatically and perfectly over all that time, it means that I think you've got Frozen 2 coming out, and you're thinking, I want something as perfect and amazing as that journey that they took to create that thing. But at the same time, I know they haven't got that much time. They might not have as much inspiration. We'll see what they do with it, and that's where I was sitting. And I won't tell you where I stand on it now until you've seen it.
Until I've seen it, yeah. I have very low expectations, because I know a lot of the time Disney sequels tend to be rubbish.
Yes, exactly.
And a lot of them used to be straight to DVD as well. So my expectations are really like Wreck-It Ralph. The first one was really good. Second one's good, but it's not as funny. It's not as clever as the first one, I think. But
I was going to say that exact one was Wreck-It Ralph. I'm sort of looking down on now as a sequel. I enjoyed it at the time, but then I just see how the things that bothered me were the characters, and they put everything into creating a sequel with all these ideas, but they didn't focus on the characters and keep them real enough.
Yeah,
and that's a problem, and it makes it a shame. So that's the fee you've got. So yeah, looking forward to watching Frozen 2 this week.
Yes, that and The Irishman, which is
the
sequel.
Yeah, I've got no other previews for this week, I don't think.
Cool. So how can they contact us?
Have a look in the description below, and you'll see a whole load of email and Twitter and all that stuff. You can always comment on this if you're the thing you're listening to allows you to comment or watching on, then please do that, and we look forward to hearing from you.
Tell a friend, subscribe.
Yeah, do that stuff.
We've got an email address, myguyReviews@gmail.com. We have a Twitter account, myguy_reviews. We have an Instagram account, My Guy Reviews, and we have a YouTube channel as well, which this also goes on to. So yeah, hit us up with your likes, comments, subscribe, and tell a friend.
And to regular viewers, we apologise again for the having missed a week, having to skip a week occasionally.
Yes.
Recently, due to technical issues and such. So thank you for hanging on to the end still.
And thanks.
Okay,
thanks for listening. Bye.
No, it's me that's talking.
Brilliant. My Guy Reviews, the podcast